Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. It's the day after. As we record, there was a revolution of some sort on pay-per-view last night. I, of course, am your host, the great Brian Last, and the man who will be reviewing the AEW pay-per-view extravaganza, as well as answering your questions and talking about the latest news in the world of professional wrestling. The star of the drive-thru, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Where's Che Guevara when you need somebody to conduct a revolution?
He's dead.
Well, that's generally what happens to people that conduct revolutions, I guess. Fortunately, the revolution we saw just yesterday was a little bit tamer.
Where's Che Rhodes, the last guy we saw lead a revolution?
He led the revolution right on out there. Well, we're going to talk about that. He may be running around in circles. He's stuck in a revolving door. I'm not sure that he can go back. Not sure he can go forward. Brian, I'm asking you, even if you don't like the boat you're in and it's not looking too seaworthy, do you jump out of that boat before another boat actually pulls up next to it? Or do you just jump and start swimming and keep your fingers crossed?
Well, you got to wait for the right opportunity.
Well, the opportunity would be when you see another fucking boat.
Exactly.
Until then, you're just jumping in the goddamn river, aren't you?
And that revolving door that keeps going around and around, I believe that's called the Codyverse.
He got into one of Stewie Griffin's experiments and is stuck now, and he keeps hitting the button. Maybe that's how Matt Hardy was teleporting. That was an early version of that device. I don't know. I've seen some great things, a couple, and I've seen a lot of dreck. My eyes are bleeding, and you're catching me in one of those grumpy moments. And the weather ain't helping. I'm going to mention this. Overnight, we had 2 inches of rain. It was 60 degrees when I got up this morning. It's right now in early afternoon, almost 40, and it's going to freeze tonight. And then within the next few days, it'll be back in the 60s, but it's going to be 60-something on Friday, and it's going to snow Saturday morning and be 18 degrees. I'm not happy.
It's 70 here today, and I'm not too happy about that because the temperature's going to drop tomorrow, and I don't know what to do because I'm here sweating in the office. Do I turn the heat off? What do I do?
White people problems, I think, is what that... Do you turn the heat on or off? What do you do? But you know, that brings to mind, actually, did I tell you what happened to Stan Lane last time I saw him? He told you he'd just been in a traffic accident.
No, you did not tell me that, no.
Yes, he came to a stop at a red light, and suddenly, boom, he was rear-ended. And bam, and the car shook, and he opens the door, and he gets out, and he's kind of shaking his head a little bit, and the driver of the car in back of him gets out, and it's a midget. He's not 3 feet tall. And son of a gun, Stan's trying not to laugh, like, what the heck? And the guy leans over and looks down at the damage to his car and looks up at Stan and says, "I'm not happy." And Stan said, "Which one are you then?"
All right, of all the people you could have associated with that joke, it became Stan Lane.
See, it's because
you're giving yourself the applause?
No, he's the one that told it to me. So I associated him. But nevertheless, anyway, it's rotten weather. But you know where the weather is fine, things are sunny, the sun is shining, the birds are singing. I love to sing about the moon and the June and the spring. That's at JimCornette.com. And the fine, fine service that you get when you patronize Cornette's Collectibles. The feather bottoms have come through with flying colors this weekend, all of them. The website did not crash when we put the action figures on sale. And there are already, I do not have the exact count from Hotchkiss because he's obviously inundated. But we've sold 200 plus so far. There's still some available, but it's been 48 hours, continue to go fast. So if you want the last remaining Christmas variant action figures that will not be remade, we have now, less than 200 or whatever. So jump on JimCornette.com and get them while they're available. And again, the feather bottoms, the orders are flying out the doors, and I am about to start, since they only went on sale just a little under 48 hours ago. I'm about to start signing the first batch and turning everything over to the feather bottoms for shipping. We're working like a well-oiled watch. But you know what? The last time my watch quit working and I put some of that fucking WD-40 on it, it didn't make it work anyway. So why do they say that?
All right.
Why do they say that?
I don't know.
That wasn't a rhetorical question.
Who's they? I don't know who's saying that.
A lot of people are talking about it. They always say that.
I don't wear a watch.
Working like a well-oiled watch.
It's moments like this where I think about my show here and think, maybe I should sell it to Tony Khan.
Oh, for heaven's sake. No, we're going to talk about that also. Later on in the program, there are things that need to be said about... I think as Christine Jarrett said one time, he could probably sell you the glasses on your own face.
There are things that need to be said.
There are things that need to be said. But I talked to Bobby Fulton over the weekend, and he reminded me of something, and I mentioned something to him, and it started us talking. And we came up with a few ideas that may benefit the modern wrestling industry. Just real quick, would you like to hear them?
Yeah, I'm very curious about what this is.
Because Bobby was saying, the thing about wrestling is it's about emotions, about making people get emotional. At our events, at the wrestling events, people get emotional. Vince doesn't hit people in their emotions anymore. And I said, yes, he does. Nausea, depression, anxiety, heartache, both on the part of the fans and the wrestlers, right? That's kind of the emotions that are induced by watching the WWE programming these days. So we're thinking they need to make new rules. That where they used to, when the fans would come in the arena, they confiscate signs that are, improper or in ill taste or whatever. Well, in this case, they're going to stop confiscating signs, but because the fans have to sit there through the fucking show and watch it, they are going to start confiscating belts and shoelaces. So as soon as people come in the door, it's like going to jail. You got to give up your belts and your shoe. You can keep your wallet. You're going to need that inside. And the merchandise stand will not be allowed to sell rope or sharp objects to any of the fans, and the merchandise stand will be forced to spike the soft drinks with Prozac. Now, that's for the fans. But for security, it used to be that we had security to protect the wrestlers from being attacked by the fans, and in some cases, to protect the fans from being attacked by the wrestlers. Well, now the security is actually going to be stationed backstage to prevent the wrestlers from leaving the arena. Because everybody knows that security is now a bunch of flunkies. They're all going to just run out and get beat up. So instead, the new ringside security will be dogs, preferably like a pack of feral, vicious Alaskan Malamutes. And when they're doing a heat angle and they're beating the fucking guy down, boom, 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 and the fans are sitting there on their hands because they've seen all this shit, and you can't do anything that people haven't seen to anybody anymore. If you've got a chainsaw, whatever, they're not caring. But then suddenly, over the PA system, they start playing, "Who let the dogs out? Woof, woof." And the place blows, and the babies throw in the air because here come the wild dogs. And they jump in there, and they start fucking ripping limb from limb, these fucking motherfuckers. And they're going for throats and jugulars. And one guy's got his fucking boot halfway down this dog's fucking throat, and dog's eating his leg, and they're just ripping and tearing and shredding. And the people love that. And then they all go home, because how do you top it? But then, finally, after they do that a time or two, one of the heels, he gets smart to it. And in his tights, he has secreted a 6-pack of fucking Nathan's Famous hot dogs. And as soon as those dogs hit the ring, he starts throwing the hot dogs out into the fucking crowd, and the dogs go out in the crowd and start attacking men and women and children, fighting them, trying to get these fucking hot dogs. And then they've slaughtered all of ringside. And you put that on pay-per-view. What do you think, Brian?
I'm glad to hear Bobby Fulton's doing well. And I hope he continues to do well. I like
You
Bobby.
don't like any of those ideas.
I don't know about that. Maybe for a comic book.
It was hilarious to us. I'll just throw those on the back burner.
You don't have to throw them.
Well, anyway, it's your show, I guess.
Hey, you want to talk about something funny? You know what I just have been looking through, and I started dying earlier. A friend sent me a bunch of old issues of the Shinmonaki Post. Do you remember this thing?
Oh, I remember. Who did that?
It was Prazak and Hudson.
Yes.
In Atlanta. The Atlanta Boys.
Prazak and Scott Hudson.
So at the time, there were really like two wrestling humor publications. There was Pro Wrestling Sushi by Jeff Mullins out in California, which was kind of a wacky and funny newsletter, but you kind of had
zany. It was zany.
If you were tied into the world of the Observer and the Reader's page, it was really funny. Otherwise, I'm not sure. But the Shinmonaki Post, here's an example of one. I picked this up. I just started laughing. They did a mock cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated for $4.95 in the US, $5.95 Canada, 5 cents in WCW. Vince McMahon, the quote is, "We're number one," and it's a picture of him giving the middle finger. And then the other quotes, "Eric Bischoff, fun with gel and resumes." Chick Donovan, teaming with Moses and Methuselah in a 6-man. Because they used to always make fun of the fact that Chick Donovan was 5,000 years old, even then. Ole Anderson, quote, "Don't know my ass from a hole in the ground." Herb Abrams, "Hey, somebody listen to me." Also covered in this issue, Carlos Colon's WWF debut as Raisin Face. And here's a quote from Lanny Poffo, "Bet you can't do this." And other crap we made up on the spot. And then if you go to the bottom where they have like the little, Pro Wrestling Illustrated is published. Pro Wrestling Illustrated is published 80 times a year as a tax dodge by a staff of 3 over-the-hill bozos pretending to be a staff of 20. It is owned and abused by Lowdown Publishing, along with its 37 other sister publications: The Wrestler, The Wrestlers, The Wrestlees, The Referees, The Wrestlers with a letter R in their name, Pro Wrestling Last Week, Pro Wrestling This Coming Thursday, nice things about everybody but WWF guys, Getting Bill Apter Over, Who Writes This Shit, more AWA shots of Hulk Hogan, Craig Peters' Top 40 Arena Rats for 1967, Dennis Brent, Smells Like a Bus, the Chick Donovan Laxative Journal, Apartment House Wrestling Lives. I was dying. There was another one, a fake movie, Aimless in Atlanta, starring Ole Anderson and Eric Bischoff. Are we having fun now?
Oh, all right. You done good there. Well, they did.
They
but
did.
You read it nice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Published 80 times a year as a tax dodge. That got me right away.
It did get ridiculous there for a while. There were a lot of titles, and they were constant. And then the reprint titles with the new covers. So you would buy the stuff you had already read, but it looked new to you.
No, the other line that got me too was more AWA shots of Hogan. Because they lost all their ringside access. They only had those old photos.
It's like in the old days, swear to God, until Nick Goulas went out of business in 1980, he used the same pictures in his newspaper ads of Jackie Fargo and Tojo Yamamoto from 1964. And people had to think, well, geez, they sure looked different last week when I saw them. Well, anyway, which direction are we going in on this fiasco? There's a lot of shit going on.
There's a lot, and we have a lot of reviews. So why don't we get through the reviews first, including the big one of the AEW pay-per-view that everyone's talking about, and then we'll get to some of the big news stories, and then we'll see how much time we have for questions and potentially a song or two.
And possibly a lecture.
A lecture.
A dissertation on retirement planning or something like that. We can't fit anything else into this program. It's just jam-packed with action.
That's right.
All right, are we starting with the jam-packed action of the Friday night shows? I use that term loosely, shows. You want to get through some of this?
Well, of course, if we're going to talk about the AEW pay-per-view, because it was a live Rampage, we do need to go through Rampage, and SmackDown did have a few things on there of note.
Well, let's start with SmackDown and go over those few things of note. And I'm going to ask you a few questions in the course of this also. So I watched the first match, and this was SmackDown for what, Friday, March 4th. The Intercontinental title opens the show up. Sami Zayn against Ricochet. And I have not seen or paid any attention to Ricochet in some time. But now I hear, is this correct? Is this the scuttlebutt that you're hearing, that he is slotted in internally in the WWE as the number 2 babyface on SmackDown behind Drew McIntyre?
I hadn't heard it put that way, but
I had heard it put exactly that way on the interweb. I don't know if after the last week he's been batting 0-0-0. I don't know if I want to credit it, but yes, one of the people who said that was dear Uncle Dave. But yes, he's high up there, is Ricochet, apparently in their hearts and minds now. And so I thought, I'll see what's going on here. They announce him at 207 pounds. So they're again, if they're not listening to my advice, because they've always done that. They've always shied away, as everybody in wrestling did, from announcing small, tiny people as how small and tiny they are. But at the same point, Ricochet is neither as tall or as heavy as the female referee in this match. So they put him next to a girl he's not as big as. You know, he's very accomplished with the acrobatics. And he looks like he's a professional athlete. He's in shape physically. The problem, he's in good shape, as I said, but kind of tiny, but he doesn't as much wrestle and do the gymnastics as a byproduct of the wrestling as much as every once in a while he does something wrestling-wise as a byproduct of the gymnastics. Do you see what I'm saying there?
I do, yeah.
And so I'm saying I've always thought, wonderful for the kids. And they have a big kids audience. They're the last wrestling promotion that anybody takes their kids to. Put a mask on him, make him a superhero, Rey Mysterio of a modern generation, whatever. But to be the number 2 babyface when you've got that face and basically your thing is you do the gymnastics, I don't know if he's going to be hitting that sweet spot. Zayn's a good worker and he physically looks like shit. And we've said that. I don't know how he is as strong as he is to move some of his opponents around with those arms. And I mean, he's redheaded. He can't tan. But, I guess genetically he can't do sit-ups. I don't know. But he can work his ass off. So naturally, he lost the match, did Sami Zayn, when Johnny Knoxville came out and distracted him and Ricochet beat him. And just the sight of Johnny Knoxville pisses me off. I don't know what it is about him, but just the sight of him pisses me off. I hope somehow Zayn goes against the fucking grain in their match or whatever and just drops him on his head. What'd you think?
Thought the match was some good action. I've liked Ricochet in the past. Sami Zayn, you can't, any problems you ever have with the way they use him, you can't say he can't work, and you can't say he doesn't show a lot. It was a WWE style match, but I thought it was all right. And I'm not a big fan of Johnny Knoxville being used here. I don't mind Jackass. I don't hate him viscerally like you do. But I'm not sure if I want a guy who was intercontinental.
He sleeps in filth. He sleeps in filth in the gutter and the streets, and he picks up garbage and eats disgusting maggots.
But yeah, slotting him into WrestleMania against a guy that was just the Intercontinental, well, that title doesn't really mean anything anymore, so I shouldn't even say it like that. But I don't know. I mean, you know, if you're a celebrity and you're willing to play ball with WWE, they'll let you just do whatever the fuck you want. I mean, seriously, if you grew up and you're a wrestling fan and you're on any show on any network, get in touch with them and just be prepared. They'll let you hang out and just do whatever the fuck you want. You can have matches. You can work at WrestleMania. You can do whatever you want. Just let them know.
And that number again is 134. Never mind.
No, that's not the number.
So next, Austin Theory. We finally get some clue that he can talk because he comes down the aisle with his own microphone, and it wasn't where he was having to sit there and feed off of Vince McMahon and basically just be the yes guy and nod his head and try to say the right things that when he can't understand what Vince is talking about. Now he's on his own, and he got some personality. He didn't seem bashful about things. He delivered his shit well. He's coming. He's on McAfee's ass. Pat McAfee at ringside. He asked McAfee, why was Vince on your show? He set you up because you're a loudmouth and people want to see you shut up, right? And what are you going to do when your jaw is wired shut? And he announces that he is the opponent for Pat McAfee at WrestleMania that Vince McMahon has arranged. That when Vince had told him on the McAfee show that if he wanted to be at wrestle at WrestleMania, he'd get him a match. And I mean, and this, I've wondered why, because McAfee was so good in the two things he did before, why they haven't had him wrestle again. Well, it's good they saved it for WrestleMania because he's a celebrity and he's probably not going to embarrass himself or all of us. And of course, as we mentioned, and now a lot of people are hopping on Uncle Dave again because he's the one that broke the news that McAfee's wrestling Vince at WrestleMania. Well, I still don't know. I can believe that they planned that. I can believe, actually, internally knowing these people, that was discussed, especially knowing Vince, that was discussed, or it went far enough that somebody finally talked him out of it. But they obviously used the McAfee show with him on it. You know, they used that interest to promote the show that he did, and now Theory is probably one of the best guys on the roster to put McAfee against because he's so talented. He'll keep the match on track. McAfee doesn't have a ton of experience. I'm sure they'll work it out ahead of time. And also because he's a weaselly type, the people do want to see him get his ass kicked, and he can get his ass kicked and still not lose the heat that somebody else might that might also not be able to carry McAfee through the day. And then he slaps the headset off McAfee's head and boom, and then goes and takes his selfies and off we go. So at least now we know he can talk and he's got some oomph. And I'd a whole lot rather see this Theory versus McAfee than Vince versus McAfee.
We still don't know what it will be. Now, again, on Raw, Austin Theory was hamming it up for the camera after he thought Vince left the room, thinking, oh, I could do whatever I want with the contract. Then Vince does the McAfee show. Austin Theory comes out here, no Vince, to say that he's facing McAfee. Who knows what it'll be at WrestleMania? Now that they let the buzz get out there that Vince was going to wrestle, and now that they let Dave get all the heat for being wrong about it as of this second, if all of a sudden Austin Theory and McAfee are in the ring at WrestleMania and all of a sudden the No Chance in Hell music hits and Vince comes out there, it'd be a big moment and people wouldn't be completely surprised. And we still don't know where this is going to go. Was he in Indianapolis just to record the Pat McAfee show, or did they get in the ring and work out? We don't know.
We will find out. At least they're leaving some questions that we'd like answered. Speaking of questions we wouldn't like the answers to, that was followed on the program by Naomi and Sasha against Mella and Zelina. Happy Corbin and Mosh Pit Jones played poker with a bunch of job guys. Drew McIntyre wrestled Jinder Mahal and did a promo about Happy and Mosh Pit. Booger played guitar so Shaky Nakamura could have epileptic seizures, but the Usos jumped him and beat them both up in the aisleway. And then I guess somebody just came out with a spatula and carried him off, because then the Usos and Reigns and Heyman came out so we could actually start paying attention to the show again. So obviously this promo was about Madison Square Garden and particularly WrestleMania. But in this case, and I wasn't disappointed, Heyman just did the fills. He just did, "Oh yes, my tribal chief," and was in the background, and Reigns took center stage on this, and he did a great fucking job. Just excellent. His voice and his inflections and the way that he makes it sound natural, along with being a grown adult man, is why he looks like a fucking star and is taken as a star. And so he took this and sounds, more sincere than almost anybody else in what he's doing, not just in this company, especially with all the other canned scripted shit, but of everybody. And is what he's going to do to Brock Lesnar, and he will acknowledge me. And boom. And, again, I wasn't disappointed. Normally I would be not getting to hear Heyman, but Reigns did such a good job with this. What'd you think?
I can't add too much more to that either. Roman Reigns is on top of his game as far as control and everything he does in a promo and a match, and this was more of what we've seen. And for once, I'm happy it was just a promo with no angle.
Well, Brian, the angle got taken care of next, because the Usos were out there. Obviously, they're part of the bloodline there. So again, they say Tony Khan refuses to do rematches, even when people want to see them. And how many times have we attempted to or actually seen the Usos and the Viking Raiders now? It's just everywhere.
That's the problem with the Usos. Every tag team you think of them wrestling, the problem is you think of them wrestling them 1,000 times.
Well, in this case, they had another match, and I didn't stick around for it. But the angle came up next with the New Day. They made their entry, Big E and Kofi Kingston, on a four-wheeler, an ATV type of vehicle, right? You know what I'm saying? It's got four wheels, and it's the off-road type of, And evidently Kofi gave it to Big E for his birthday. They're not even doing the deal where the fans chipped in and got the guy a cake, or the fan club made him a new robe. It's just his tag team partner said, "Oh, fuck, I'll just give him a $25,000, however much these things cost, custom ATV. And Big E's going to wrestle Sheamus." And apparently there's been conversation about this ATV amongst these people beforehand. Because before the match even starts, Ridge Holland is out there with Sheamus, right? And
Sheamus,
whichever one. And Ridge takes something or other and just starts, a chair, I believe it was, and starts beating the ATV up as a distraction. So when the poor baby faces drop their tail, "Oh my God, my ATV!" then Sheamus can beat up Big E and just kick the shit out of both of them. And the heels jumped on the ATV and stole it and rode off at 3 miles per hour. And there was no match.
And there was no match.
They all got in the ring for the match. They came out on the ATV. They got in the ring for the match. And then the heels started beating up the ATV and then beat up the baby faces and did a low-speed getaway down the aisleway on the ATV.
So in terms of actual wrestling rules, is that a no contest?
I think that probably a no contest would be the best way to put it. No match, no contest, no interest, no ratings, no viewers.
What the hell was that? Where'd you get that?
Ha, 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 ha. You never know about these things. But fortunately, we did get to see more of this story because they went to break, and when they come back from the break, they showed the footage. They took the ATV out back like Old Yeller and took sledgehammers and did the best they could to beat it. It wasn't like you were seeing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of people like Vader, Bam Bam Bigelow, people like that could have really wielded a sledgehammer or welded. Would that be the past tense? Wielded. But yeah, so they beat the ATV up with sledgehammers.
Where'd they get the sledgehammers?
Well, I don't. More importantly, how badly did they hurt Big E and Kofi Kingston that all the way through the fucking commercial break they couldn't find their stolen ATV that was only 100 feet away out in the back?
I hear some banging over there. Is that it? No, it must be something else.
I hear banging. Armageddon. Anyway, did you listen to the Robert D. Rayford clip?
I didn't, actually, because several people sent it in, and I finally got to hear it.
Armageddon! All right, never mind. You're just hopeless. You're not a gerbil fan.
I am not, no.
Well, I'm not a fan of Johnny Knoxville.
That's a transition.
That's who was next, and he talked, and he sounds as big of an idiot as he looks. And then the main event, and again, what did we really either just watch the start or the middle or the end of these programs. In between is just meaningless sound and motion. But the main event is going to see Ronda Rousey in action against Cruella de Vil. And I'm thinking this, again, might not be the best way to showcase Ronda Rousey's special, unique skills. Because every time we've seen her, was she this green on the first run, or did they hide it better?
Both.
Okay. But anyway, before the bell started for this match, Charlotte came out because obviously, you know, that's where they're headed. And again, Ronda Rousey, she slaps her, she kicks her, she goes for an armbar. Charlotte gets up on the apron. Cruella stops Ronda from behind and starts getting heat on her. It's like they not only can't trust her to be on offense and do the things that she does that gets her over, but they're putting in her position where she's got to sell just over and over and over. And she's not that. Cruella held a chin lock forever because they still had some time they need to put in. And as I said, she's not Jack Briscoe. And at one point, Ronda just came out of everything and went on offense. It was like there was no momentum changes as much as it's your turn now. Ronda is not really experienced working, and I don't think DeVille is the best person to lead her. And then finally, she just broke loose with 3 judo throws in a row and then that Piper's Pit. She can do that. That stuff is great. That's what she needs to be doing. But the one arm tied behind her, or the letting her twist in the wind in the Battle Royal, or the putting in her position where she's got to sell for an extended period of time, she ain't there yet. And so 3 judo throws, the Piper's Pit, which is a nice high-impact move. It looks good, and then puts the armbar on, gets the tap out. It was 3 minutes from start to finish by the time that they got around to it. And then Charlotte gets in the ring. I think that's where she was in her high heels and everything, right? And there's no... Ronda just, okay, boom, takes her down and ankle locks her, and she's tapping like Bill Bojangles Robinson. And then there we go. Wait a minute.
Are you going to hotshot these new sound effects so early in the show?
Okay, Stacy got me a new sound gimmick, and I've been anxious to try it out. But that was SmackDown. What did you think of Ronda's confrontation there with Cruella DeVille?
I didn't think very much of it. They did build it up the entire show as Ronda's Smackdown debut. I didn't realize she had never wrestled on Smackdown in her previous run.
Maybe that's why that we don't remember her being this green. How often did she wrestle on television? Were we even watching the shows at that point?
She was definitely wrestling on the pay-per-views or the premium live events, whatever they are
Whatever
called.
they were, yeah.
I don't know. How many matches did she actually have during that first run?
We ought to, I should say we ought to, but we don't have time to. But a member of the cult of Cornette out there that's more well-versed on this situation than we are with the statistics. Maybe we can call Tony Khan. He can give us the stats. He's got plenty of free time.
Yeah, maybe he could book SmackDown.
Why not? He could pop the corn too. Anyway, so that was SmackDown, and in the WWE universe, Brian, since we're all in that universe, which is, I thought the universe was supposed to be steadily expanding in size all the time and getting bigger and bigger, the vastness of space, the timelessness of infinity. The WWE universe is getting smaller. Is this a reverse Big Bang?
A reverse Big Bang? What do you mean?
A reverse Big Bang. It started, instead of starting at a nucleus and exploding and spreading out, is the WWE universe. It started big and it's slowly becoming the black hole where the gravity sucks itself in. And that universe is getting smaller all the time.
It's been that way for a while. I guess I'm just used to it.
The reverse Big Bang. It's a big fart.
That's going to be next year's WrestleMania theme. WrestleMania 39, reverse Big Bang.
But while we're in the WWE universe, should we commentate and conspire on the Cody Rhodes situation? Yay, nay, is he, will he, did he, should he? Where is he?
Cody Rhodes is on that thin line between really intriguing, what's he going to do, and boy, this gets fucking annoying every time. Because it's everything he does. It's everything on TV. It's everything behind the scenes. Nothing's easy. It's always this drama. We don't know what's going on, and it seems like no one else is publicly saying what's going on. We could all presume different things, but we don't know.
Well, the thing is, if this is all some type of vast work on, maybe Cody went to Vince and said, hey, Vince, everybody now knows that I'm coming there, but we can really fuck with their minds and I can still make a dramatic entrance of some kind if you spread the word to those blabbermouth writers. Hey, I don't know about this Cody. He wants everything, including the brown M&Ms taken out. We may be changing the plans. Maybe that will get intrigue, since my teasers of dashingness and everything on your program got popcorn farts from the crowd. And I can see Vince possibly wanting to go along with something like that if you caught him on the right day. Or is it a question of, did he jump out of his boat before the other boat pulled along and now he's just floating in the water? Did he lose his bargaining power?
That's another one of the theories out there. Another one, there are people who think he may end up with Ring of Honor. That's another popular theory right now.
No, goddammit, that would not have been his end goal. Especially since this deal with Ring of Honor, according to Tony Khan's own chicken lips, wasn't done till 6:00 p.m. the night before the night he announced it. They wouldn't have gone through all this to make the announcement to guess who's going to run Ring of Honor. No.
But then I guess the big question is this. Do you, and I'm saying you being Jim Cornette, but you being anyone, do you believe that Cody Rhodes left AEW, put out public statements along with his wife and with Tony Khan? You know there are NDAs in place for both parties. Did he do all of that and not have a done deal with Vince McMahon? Because that is business insanity.
One would think, yes, that would be insanity, craziness, Armageddon. But I fail to be surprised a lot anymore at anything that happens. It is very, and one would think that in some cases somebody might say, well, he couldn't just leave and sign a contract. Yes, he could, because his previous contract with AEW had expired. So he would have been able to sign a contract. But we also know that the WWE as an entity has been known to change, pull, cancel, modify, or whatever agreements that they've made, offers that they've made. But one would think that this would have been a done deal. So that's why we don't know. I can see, as I said, Cody going to Vince and saying, well, geez, maybe we could do this and it would cause more interest. And it apparently is. But I could also see Vince McMahon realizing that somebody fucked up and believed him. What was the line in Paul Bosch's autobiography? At least in the original version, I can't remember whether it made the print. I have the manuscript.
Vince McMahon, the man who destroyed the man who destroyed the faith in the handshake?
Yes. It's business, pal. So I can see both those things having possibilities to them. We will find out.
Some people are pointing to the fact that Kevin Owens is set for an angle with Steve Austin, not a match, but an angle with Steve Austin at WrestleMania after his weeks-long feud with the city of Dallas. Some people are saying Seth Rollins doesn't really have anything for WrestleMania. They're saying that's who Cody Rhodes will be wrestling. It'll be Cody and Seth Rollins. They'll start him with a match that you would think in terms of athleticism would be as good as it gets in WWE if you're putting him in there with Seth Rollins. So there are some people saying that. Some people think that maybe Vince was about to put pen to ink and he said, get that stupid thing off your neck. But like I said, that the other problem is...
Right? They can do those things now.
Over several treatments. It may be painful, I presume, but, he went through the pain of having it. Might as well go through the pain of... no one in wrestling has done that.
Wait, you'll get this. Maybe nobody else in the audience. He can tell you about pain.
Okay, well...
Stand back.
Stand back. Cody Rhodes. We don't know what's going on with him. But like I said before, it's all intriguing. It's a lot of fun to talk about what he's going to do, but it's also exhausting after a while. And it kind of felt like everyone moved on from the Cody news cycle, and then the story became, oh, he's not signed, or no, that wasn't even that. It was creative has been told by Vince McMahon that there are no current plans for Cody, right? Wasn't it something like that?
No, actually, not even that specific. It was the story that is out. It emanated from the idea that creative was sure that they had him and were making plans, and now they've been told, wait a minute, it may not be that easy. Just stop right there before we go any further. Do you love me? Do you love me forever? There's nothing of any detail, is what I'm saying. It's just all of a sudden, whoa, pump the brakes. Vince has told creative that it may not be what we thought. And that's why everybody's going crazy.
Imagine Vince went along with all of Cody's stuff and they're sitting down and Cody says, well, I have some ideas of how I'd like to be used. And Vince says, oh, well, let me hear them. How about I tag with The Miz at WrestleMania? Okay, that sounds great. And then he replaces him with Logan Paul. Okay, how about I wrestle Sami Zayn? Oh, okay, well, then Johnny Knoxville. Every match has a celebrity in it. Austin Theory's been getting used well. Oh, we're going to put him in there with McAfee. All the wrestlers are working with celebrities. There are no wrestlers to work with wrestlers.
Wait a minute. Maybe that's the creative change because they're trying to figure out which department to put Cody in. Is he a wrestler from AEW or is he a celebrity from Rhodes to the Top? They can't figure out whether to book him against a wrestler or a TV star.
We have not heard any official word. I mean, we all presume that Rhodes to the Top will not be returning to the Turner Broadcasting lineup, but we haven't heard any actual firm word that it isn't, have we?
No. the last I heard, they were planning a season 2. I don't know that did they make a public announcement of that? I'm not sure.
If he lit himself on fire and they weren't filming for season 2, I'm going to be pissed. Why would he do that? That was the whole point of it, I thought, was, I got this for the reality show. This will be great. Brandy gets to start the fire. I get to put out the fire with my back and take it with me.
Brandy didn't start the fire.
Yes, she did.
Here's the thing. One way or another, even if they shot the footage, then they could release it, straight to DVD. Like Cody could be the first reality TV star that does what the bad movie stars do, and they start releasing a TV show straight to DVD.
Rhodes to the $5 bin.
Rhodes to Walmart.
I think it sounds like a good idea. But with all this going on, I mean, it's exhausting. Like I said, you get exhausted just thinking about all this Cody melodrama.
Yeah.
You need to start your day with a good breakfast just to make sure you have enough energy for the Cody nonsense. And start the day with a good cereal while you're at it.
Goddammit, I find that I'm always exhausted if I have laid awake all night, Brian, worrying about breakfast, worrying about not having a good breakfast, not having a healthy breakfast, having a breakfast that might send me to an early grave. But fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore because I always know that a fine, healthy, and tasty breakfast awaits me at the bottom of my bowl of Magic Spoon, or at the bottom of a bottle. Sometimes, it's been one of those weeks, and I'll just start drinking early that day. But if I go for the bowl of tasty cereal, I'm telling you, I got to have Magic Spoon. Oh boy, I'm giddy thinking about it now. From the time you were a kid, you wanted to eat cereal, but it was full of sugar and carbs and junk and all that stuff. But now Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors that you love, but without all the bad stuff. And you don't even have to pour booze over it. It's amazing as a midnight snack, as eating it like trail mix around the day, all through the day, or, as we mentioned, for a healthy breakfast. If you're trying to cut down on carbs and sugar and unhealthy food, don't drink the protein shakes, that powder stuff. My God, it's like mixing up Quickcrete and drinking it. You'll have a giant ball of concrete in your stomach. No, and it tastes lousy too. You want Magic Spoon. 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories a serving. But if you're a gluttonous pig, eat 2 servings, it's still 280. What the fuck? That's less than a goddamn Twinkie. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb, but high taste and a lot of fun. Fun for the whole family. You can throw this stuff at the kids, and they love it because it's multiple colors. You can build your very own custom bundle, choosing from cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. Don't throw the maple waffle at the kids. It's a little heavier, and it might sting. But right now, folks, if you go to magicspoon.com/Jim to grab a custom bundle of those amazing, mouth-watering, tantalizing, scintillating flavors that I just enumerated, and use the promo code JIM at checkout, you're going to save $5 off your order. It's backed with 100% happiness guarantee. They will refund your money if you don't like it. You repugnant human being, you. Anybody that just doesn't put a smile on their face, they've got a horrible sociopathic problem. But if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. Remember, magicspoon.com/Jim. Use the code JIM at checkout to save $5. And thank you, Magic Spoon, for giving us a wonderful way to start the day.
I was actually just speaking to some people who are into, I don't know if you say into, they're doing the keto diet, and they have fallen in love with Magic Spoon. It being keto-friendly and tasty. It's like their go-to snack and breakfast.
They're friendly to everybody. keto friendly, they're gluten friendly, they're grain friendly.
Well, I think it's is it gluten friendly?
Well, it's gluten free, but if it's free of glutens, then it's friendly to you if you don't like the gluten.
Actually, that sounds like it's kind of the opposite of being friendly to gluten. It sounds like it's kind of saying you can't come in here, gluten.
Yeah.
That's not being friendly to them.
Well, it's being friendly to the people who don't like the glutens. You know, the glutens have been a warlike people for the past 700-800 years. So we like to exclude those glutens.
I never used to see, on the pizza menu options for this. And then one day years ago, I was like, what's gluten-free pizza? And it turned out it was gluten-free pizza.
That's a pizza place that won't let me in, is a gluten-free pizza. But we just discovered the gluten. Yeah. See, all these things that were just making people's appendages fall off and rot and turn black and things that we never had a name for before. They used to call things the grip or the mange or the, malingering about things or whatever. Now they've invented all these, they've discovered all these things. And gluten, those people, they're among the worst.
All right, now this will be an interesting transition away from WWE Smackdown, and can't speak about gluten-free, but if you are a glutton for punishment, perhaps you watched AEW Rampage this Friday. Was that an okay transition for you?
Let's just get it out of the way. The show that time forgot, the one they've given up on. They tried to juice it up a little bit, apparently, with their TNT title three-way match on Friday night, but there was...
And it was live.
And was it live?
It was live. I think that's what they're doing now. When they do a pay-per-view event, they're going to run Rampage live a couple of nights before.
See, I tune out the start when they blow off everything and they ask us if we know what it means. What is the meaning of life? You know what that means. But the first match on the program was Darby Allen against Sammy Guevara against Andre Olio. And I tried, and they started out at 100 miles per hour. They did moves for the sake of doing moves. It didn't make any sense. You've still got Darby and Sammy, two baby faces that people like. I'm not saying they shouldn't wrestle each other or compete against each other, but they do moves to everybody. The heels that they hate and the baby faces that are supposed to be their friends alike, as if they want to cripple everybody with just willy-nilly with no concern for people's health and welfare. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're a baby face wrestling a heel that's done horrible things to you, yes, you've got some justification for trying to suplex him off the roof through, fucking a plate glass window. But the poor guy that's the sportsman-like baby face that just wants to wrestle and compete for the fans, you want to cripple him too. Fuck, I don't know. So I just I tuned out on that. But the big, God almighty, did you see our boy Alex has turned into the Crypt Keeper? We like Alex Abrahantes. Is that how you say his last name?
Abrahantes?
Well, you say Abra, I say Abra.
Abraham Lincoln?
Abraham Lincoln, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought that was with the Hispanic accent, Abrahantes.
Okay, maybe.
I don't know.
You may be right. I could be wrong. Well,
that's an entirely safe bet. But Alex is now turned into the Crypt Keeper. He's wearing the druid robes and he's the spookiness, and there's a penthouse, and now this would have worked better at Halloween. Because they've just suddenly decided to become grave robbers or whatever, and there's Pac standing there. He looks like he's got a bad disposition all the time. I guess that's why they call him the Bastard. But they cut the promo on the Blackfellows, and then the Blackfellows...
Well, hold on. Let's just clarify for anyone who's new to the program. You mean the House of Black?
Yeah, fellows. Malachi Black.
Black and
he hangs out in the dark with all of his other guys dressed in black. They're all the Blackfellows. And they suddenly appear on tape and answer the promo that just happened in the ring. But then the lights go out and then they appear in the ring. And Alex introduces their newest monster member. Because they've got Alex and Penthouse and Pac have a new monster to fight the Black Fellows because they just brought in their new monster. But actually, they just brought in two new monsters. They're adding people weekly. This is going to rival the United States-Russia conflict in terms of number of troops on the ground in the next 4 to 6 weeks if they keep adding people at this rate, because they got 2 TV shows a week. So the 3 Black Fellows are out there suddenly. They came out of the darkness. And then Alex says, but we're not scared because there's already 3 of them, but I guess Alex doesn't count himself. And he introduces their newest member, or monster, Eric Redbeard. And here comes one of the guys that used to be in the fucking Wyatt family, right? What's his name?
He was Eric Rowan. He was the tag team partner of Brody Lee when Brody Lee was Luke Harper.
Well, there you go. So here he comes. And again, they either find the most minute, small, 5.5 foot tall, 140 pound wrestlers that they can find, or they find every indie guy that is large but just takes up space. And here he comes, and they all face off. And then here immediately, now once again, this is on the same program where we've seen everything but live cattle mutilations. And before anybody has even touched each other, 12 security guys run down.
Yes.
And yes.
No, I got to be honest. As soon as I saw the security guards, I got excited. I said, they can't do this again. We've seen this now on multiple shows where these guys line up and just run into a beating, and they did it again, and I screamed in joy.
And this time it's the baby faces beating up security. The heels ran out, and the 12 security guys run in, and of course they feed the big new guy, old Redbone, and the baby faces beat security up, and then who was it? Penthouse broke one guy's arm. Oh my God, he's going to break his arm. Snap. Yes, he broke his arm. So they just broke the security guy's arm for no reason because they were mad at the heels that never touched them.
You know, I enjoy talking about the stupidity of the House of Black. Because you didn't even bring up the fact that when they answered via video response in the smoky shadows of wherever, thankfully there was a cameraman there, Malachi again walked straight and the other guys just come in from the side. Where is everyone? Yeah. What are they doing? At least they didn't answer each other's or end each other's sentences like they did the other day. But it's fun to talk about it, but it's so bad. The Alex Abrahantes thing, I don't even know what to think about it. Again, he's committed to it, but he was so good at being Alex Abrahantes, not, the evil Pope or whatever he is now. What is this? And by the way, I actually don't mind him bringing in Eric Redbeard. If you're going to use him right, he is a big guy. He is someone that the fans there remember. He was on the Brody Lee tribute show. They know he was with Brody Lee. He has some credibility. So you think they're going to bring him in for this? Oh, wow, maybe they'll do something with him. But boy, the next night, I was like, nope, they're not going to do anything. Or 2 nights later, no, they're not doing anything with him.
Well, anyway. So now we got those folks mad at each other. Okay, the reason why I watched the program, actually, was to see Keith Lee. Because as you will recall, Keith Lee, I said, had the best debut match in AEW history. It was the only way. He looked like a monster. He got over convincingly. He did exactly what he needed to do to make an impact. It was, a pretty model big man going out and getting over. So I'm thinking, can he do it twice in a row? And the answer is no. And part of the reason was because, oh my God, they have a cast of multitudes of unheard of job guys, right? From the Nightmare Factory, or now is it the QT Factory, or just the indie guys that want to show up. How did they book Keith Lee against a guy that was only 2 inches shorter than him, looked like only about 60 or 70 pounds lighter than him, gray-haired, and fucking fat? A fat white guy with gray hair. And this is Keith. They could got anybody. Where's Dwarf Dong Sucker when you need him? Can you imagine how far Keith Lee could have thrown that little fucking pinball? But no, so... And Drake, he opened the thing up with two shitty... The first thing you saw, he goes up to Keith Lee and gives him two shitty knife edge chops that Keith Lee didn't sell, nor should he have. But it didn't even sound like a guy that size even trying. And then Keith Lee is doing the double hand palm chop, which to a little guy again, but this guy. And then Keith Lee shoots him off, and the fat guy does an up and over out of the turnbuckle. I guess to show that he can do it. Of course, when he landed, he nearly tripped and fell down trying to turn around and run the ropes. But it's not about seeing what the fat white guy with gray hair can fucking do. He did an up and over Keith Lee. This fucking guy looks like a parking attendant. And then they went to a break. In this match, they went to a break. When they came back, the fat white guy with gray hair was on offense. And he actually did a moonsault. Almost missed it completely, but Keith Lee was selling. And then finally, Lee caught him in his crossbody, power slam, boom, 1, 2, 3. And then, I swear to God, if it wasn't bad enough that he barely, nearly, just by the skin of his teeth, submerged past the fat white guy with gray hair, and here comes fucking Cesar Romero, Ryan Nemeth, that fucking skinny who the fuck. It looks like he went to give blood and forgot to say when. And they start trying to get heat on Keith Lee, and Keith Lee beats them all up, but it didn't look good. It was actually because this was just a mess by this point. And then Starks and Hobbs decide they're going to close in on Keith Lee, and they start headed that way. Oh my gosh. Starks and Hobbs and Keith Lee. Maybe that might be interesting. But no. Because Pockets came out. Pockets came out to back Keith Lee up in his third week in the company. And then, even though he did nothing, the heels just stopped. And there you have it. Wait a minute. Hold on. A fat job guy that made Keith Lee look rotten, and this whole thing was rotten. Did you see this? I forgot to ask you.
I did watch it. I didn't watch it live. I watched it a couple of days ago.
It wasn't really live when it was live. But, I mean, how can somebody look like a world beater the first time? Well, part of it was the choice of opponent, and part of it was the formatting, and part of it was the clusterfuck at the end. But 2 weeks ago, the guy looked like a fucking future superstar, and here he looked like a fat guy in the middle of a bunch of fat fucks and skinny fucks.
Yeah, I can't explain it. The JD Drake, was that his name?
I suppose.
He was a big guy. I mean, the only way I could justify it, and I'm not justifying it, in their minds would be maybe now, last time we showed what he could do with a small guy, we'll show how strong he is now, but it wasn't really a showcase of him. It was just a competitive match with a guy that every now and then is on TV with a, hate to say it, but a job crew clique. I was about to say Cesar Romero. Cesar Menini, or whatever his name is. What is he, 6'8"? I mean, he's gigantic. So now Keith Lee's in there with a guy who's gigantic. The other guy was really big. Peter Avalon looks like crap, and it's the second time we've seen him, so he's still there. And Keith Lee's the one who threw him. Hey, book Keith Lee for a short match against a guy like that. Have him throw him around and pin him in 90 seconds.
There you go.
And you get more done than whatever this was. And like you said, I was able to accept it by the end. Okay, that's AEW for you. Take the simplicity of what could work with simplicity and just fuck it up and then claim victory. But then when Orange Cassidy came out to make the save, do you call it a save? I don't know what you call it.
No, you to make the walkout. He walked out and everybody just stopped what they were doing and then it all ended.
This was not the way I would have done it. I don't know anyone who would have done it this way other than Tony Khan.
You can have the guy work with a bigger guy to show his power, but the guy that he's working with needs to be able to work. And not to show what he can do, that's not his place, but to put the guy's stuff over that you're trying to get over, Keith Lee. So, and everybody that ran in at the end of this thing looked like fans at a Juggalo festival cosplaying the human oddities. Just weird, bizarre looking. Anyway, the only good thing about, go ahead.
I was going to say, part of the problem is that Redbeard just beat up all the security guards. So there was no one to go out there and help Keith Lee except Orange Cassidy. Maybe.
They were all loading the one guy who broke his arm back into the goddamn ambulance. The only really positive thing on this program, CM Punk did a pre-tape, still covered in blood. It was after the fucking match on Wednesday night, and did a promo, the attack by MJF, and did a promo about the pay-per-view and sold some tickets. That was a positive thing. I wish we'd see more of that. Some more girls got in a fake fight backstage. I know that's hard to believe. Serena Deeb beat Layla Gray in a minute, and then Hikaru Shida came out and just hit Serena Deeb 13 times was my count. She may have whiffed one with a kendo stick. Apparently another byproduct of all the security being in an ambulance. They can't just, why do they have to hit people 12 and 13 times with something? I guess that's rhetorical. And they had another ladder qualifier matcher. Christian Cage. They said Christian Cage was going to outwork everyone. Has he been on unemployment all this time? He's been out of work instead of out where he hasn't wrestled in 6 months?
It's been a while since we've seen him, yeah.
Okay, so now
he's been basically the manager of Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus.
Yes, which is fine. It keeps them from talking for themselves. But he's in a qualifying match to go into a ladder match where the winner of the ladder match gets a shot at the world title. Right? And he hasn't wrestled in 6 months. But in this case, he's wrestling the other Page. And he won. And he would join Hobbs and Lee and Starks and Wardlow and Pockets in the 6-way ladder match at the pay-per-view. And that was Friday night Rampage. Nearly sent me into a rampage, having to devote an hour of my life to that.
Well, perhaps you started your day with a healthy breakfast, and perhaps after Rampage, you needed a little bit of an extra boost to make sure you had a good night's sleep. Not just falling asleep because of the show, but a good night's sleep. Maybe you want a nice cup of something to help you along that way.
Are you just trying to put me in a coma? Are you just trying to keep me unconscious all the time for some surreptitious reason?
I would never admit that.
You seem to be wanting me to go to bed a lot. I'll tell you what, I've said this here on the program numerous times of late, especially after my last doctor's checkup, that I've never felt better in my adult life. And one of the things that I've been doing is sleeping regularly. And I never realized all of the time that I've been in the wrestling business since I was a teenager and out 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, long trips and binging 3 or 4 days without sleep because of shows and schedules, and then trying to get sleep at odd hours where I could find it, that now that I have spent 2 years sleeping regularly every night, I have never felt better, and I'm in a better mood, and blah, blah, blah. And there's something to this, Brian. You can tell they've done these scientific studies. Poor sleep can cause weight gain, mood issues, poor mental health, lower productivity. Well, lower productivity I've always produced. I've been very productive, but at the expense of all those other things. Sleeping less than 6 to 7 hours per night is linked to reduced white blood cell count, which protects our body against illness and diseases, fighting viruses and bacteria. And another reason I haven't had COVID is because I've been getting a lot of sleep. And not many people realize this, but having a consistent nighttime routine is so important because a better tomorrow starts tonight. That's why the folks at Beam have introduced Dream. Beam is the world's most innovative functional wellness brand with unique products for everything from sleep to recovery. And today, you all the members of the Cult of Cornette can experience what I'm experiencing with wonderful sleep and get a special discount available for Beam's sleep product, Dream Powder. It is their best-selling healthy hot cocoa. And ever since we've started advertising the folks at Beam, a couple of years ago, Stacy has had a steady supply of this. And not only the powder, but also the glass cups and the mixers and the whole 9 yards. It contains natural, sleep-promoting premium ingredients, triple lab tested, no THC, but give it a shot anyway. And you wake up refreshed because, folks, as we've mentioned, 98% of people surveyed fall asleep faster when taking Beam Dream, and 99% of people experience better sleep quality. And the other 2 and 1%, well, we're going to get quotes from them whenever we get them unplugged from all those various machines.
There's no one plugged into any machines. You will have a wonderful night's sleep with Beam, and some of those statistics may not actually be true. They may be for entertainment purposes.
Well, just some of the ones that I mentioned. Just mix Beam Dream into hot water or milk, stir, and enjoy 30 minutes before bedtime. Folks, I'm telling you, and if you don't love it, you'll get your money back guaranteed. But Forbes is talking about it. The New York Times is talking about it. Some of the top athletes in the world are taking it. You got to get with the picture and sleep like a corpse. You'll never wake up. For a limited time now.
You will wake up.
You'll wake up feeling refreshed.
Yes.
But not until you want to. Sometime shortly, I set several alarms. You're going to need them.
No,
folks.
You'll be fine.
You'll be good. For a limited time, you can get $20 off when you go to beamorganics.com. That's BEAM organics.com/JCE and use the code JCE at checkout. That's beamorganics.com/JCE. Use the code JCE and you'll get $20 off. I'm telling you, Coco. That's what I used to call my grandmother when I was a little kid. And it makes you feel warm and fuzzy to have this best-selling, healthy, hot cocoa put you right into a state of suspended animation.
Well, Jim, picking up from there, and I remind you, it is indeed my show. And before we get to the review of the big AEW, I was about to say Rampage, but AEW Revolution pay-per-view extravaganza, news broke over the last couple of days that the WWE will be inducting Vader into their Hall of Fame this year. And obviously, everyone wants to know your thoughts, you being the manager of Vader in the World Wrestling Federation. So what do you think?
Well, the short version is I'm for it. Before anybody starts thinking that I'm going to knock this and no, he shouldn't be in. No, I'm absolutely for it. But I, again, have questions. They knew, 2 years ago that he was if not terminally ill, that he was very ill, that he'd said he didn't have long with his heart problems, whatever. They couldn't have done it then. They couldn't have switched something around. I don't remember who was in that class that year, but and then the pandemic came, but I'm glad they're finally getting around to it. And maybe this is a little, because it obviously meant a lot to Leon, especially the last couple of years of his life, because he was mentioning it and people on his behalf were trying to get, support for it. So it kind of makes up for the fact that when you think about it, the WWF run was the only place where Vader was not really the man. And for all the reasons we've talked about, and the clips are on YouTube, so I'm not going to go through it all here again, but they just didn't, the thing with Michaels, they didn't understand Vader. Vince and he didn't get each other, I don't think. And he didn't fit in that environment. As I said, for the reasons we've talked about, that's why he didn't have the spectacular run there that he had everywhere else, WCW and Japan and Germany, all the other places. But this makes up for it a little bit because this is the highest profile Hall of Fame. So the one promotion that he didn't completely dominate out of all the ones he ever wrestled in, this is the one that's putting him in a Hall of Fame. So maybe it makes up for it.
All right. Well, that's the news of Vader into the Hall of Fame. Will you be inducting him?
What are your thoughts?
Are you going to be inducting him?
No, I'm not going to be. No, number one, they didn't call me. What's the quote? If nominated, I would not run. If elected, I would not serve. It's not that I don't want to induct Vader into the Hall of Fame, but I'm not going to be leaving the house and traveling and messing up my good night's sleep. So, but no, we can shoot that one down. I appreciate everybody that said on Twitter and everything, oh, Cornette's got to do it. Well, no, not really. Again, when you think about it, there are people available. Mick Foley, who worked with him in both WCW and WWF. And I'm sure that he would do a wonderful job. And it's the least he can do for the guy that tore his ear off. There's a few different people that could do it. So this would be another good one for Jim Ross. He was always a big fan of Leon's. So, I don't think that I'm just the natural choice. I worked with him for that period of time, but I was not intricately involved with him throughout a lot of his career.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of good choices. You can't get Antonio Inoki, and that wouldn't be who they would go with. His biggest WCW rival was Sting. You're not going to get Sting. His WCW manager was Harley Race. You're not going to get Harley Race. Sean's not doing it. I mean,
yeah, somebody on Twitter said, why not Shawn Michaels? I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine?
Leon would probably come back from the grave. Ooh. Well, then that may narrow it down to Mick when you think about it.
Yeah.
We shall see.
We shall see. And we did just see a pay-per-view extravaganza, the likes of which we will see again in a few months. And that was AEW Revolution, coming live from Las Vegas. Was it Las Vegas? It was Las Vegas, right?
No.
Where was it? Orlando.
They were in Florida.
It was in Orlando.
You're only 2,000 miles off. Where are you?
I was thinking of the next big pay-per-view extravaganza.
Yeah. Are you on Neptune?
Neptune Boulevard.
Should we discuss this first before we get into Revolution? Because I told you this, yesterday? You hadn't heard this, but I've just got to bring this up. The sale price of Ring of Honor to Tony Khan that people are quoting on the internet. Can we bring this up now? It's your show.
You could feel free to bring this up. I didn't realize you were the person who enlightened me to the chatter about this, so let's hear about it.
There are people, and again, this is not even a knock on AEW. I'm not trying to blister Tony Khan. I'm not trying to piss at anybody's post-toasties. I'm just saying as a flat-out statement that there are people on the internet that are saying with a straight face that Tony Khan paid Sinclair Broadcasting $40 million for Ring of Honor. And I don't know how to respond to something like that. Can you, there's, and again, we know that Tony will overpay a wrestler. He's done it numerous times. And we know that Tony has all this money. We know if Tony wants something, he get, but no, just no. Where are people's fucking minds? And more, they know more about how the wrestling business operates now than ever before, but they still can work themselves into a frenzy like that. No. And need I remind you that the last time that a major broadcasting conglomerate had a moribund wrestling promotion for sale in WCW, Vince McMahon got the whole entire WCW and NWA library that still existed and the intellectual properties and et cetera of $2 million of WCW. And yes, that was 20 years ago, and now they're streaming and all this stuff. I know 10 years ago what Sinclair Broadcasting paid for Ring of Honor to begin with. And I know that they have added to their video library since then. And I also know that they've bought some production equipment. And I also still know that all that stacked on top of each other together times 4 would not equal $40 million. But something like this starts going around the internet and people pick up on it and start repeating it without stopping to analyze just for a moment what the fuck you've just said. So, and that's without any wrestlers or wrestler contracts. That's just production equipment and the video library. Brian, does that sound like a good deal to you?
No. Maybe he also got the rights to carry Sex Dungeon in Puerto Rico.
Oh, come on. Everybody knows he sold that after the fucking hurricane. But no, seriously, and I'm glad that he bought it instead of Vince McMahon because he'll do something with the footage rather than
his heart's in the right place.
His heart's in the right place. And I'm trying to protect his public image here. No, Tony Khan is not a fucking raving lunatic that spent $40 million for a video library. He's not. Come on, people. Don't talk about him like that. He's not that bad.
And by the way, the other thing you have to think about is WWE wouldn't pay that much money for that catalog right now. And that's the other bidder. So why would he bid? What are they going to bid? Okay, I'm going to quadruple that and then times that by 10. Like, why would he do that?
If anybody thinks that it was in the double digit, if WWE even did make an offer for the library and the production equipment and whatever the fuck else was left, as they said, there were talks. It was probably barely in the millions, much less tens of millions, if it was there at all. Because they didn't really give a shit, probably.
Could you have imagined 1 year into your Ring of Honor run if someone had said one day someone's going to purchase this company and the production equipment?
I would have been happy if we could have produced or purchased the production equipment. Instead of renting it from fucking Smart Ass Video or whatever the fuck, wherever they were getting that stuff. But anyway, no, folks, come on. Let's just calm down and listen to a little reason here. And no, that was not. So again, and then the other announcement that Tony made while we're talking about it. Guess who, Brian? Guess who? Wouldn't you know who won the pony? Who's going to be the booker of Ring of Honor? Tony Khan. And then he told Joe Koff he can pop the popcorn too. So now he's going to book Dynamite. And he's going to book Rampage. And he's going to book the pay-per-views. And he's going to book the quarterly specials on TNT. And now he's going to book what is allegedly supposed to be run as a completely different wrestling promotion with crossover talents on occasion. I mean, you know, it's amazing. He's going to cure cancer, I guess, next week, right? That's scheduled. And then he'll bring peace to Russia and Ukraine. What? Ah. And
who are you to doubt Booker of the Year? 2-time Booker of the Year.
Oh, well, okay, again, even if you think that somebody's the best in the world at what they do, can they do it everywhere all at the same time? Isn't there a limit to someone's energy and capacity to do all those things all at the same time? And I saw somebody on the internet. So, well, they're just also, me and you, when we kind of raised an eye at this, well, they're just shitting all over it. They're jealous, blah, blah, blah. They've saved countless jobs. Tony Khan saved countless jobs. How many jobs did he save? They already fired all the wrestlers. They had no wrestlers under contract. In the office, I guarantee you, as I mentioned, I know that some people who have been there for quite some time found out about the sale when they watched on TV Tony Khan talk about it. But when you subtract the people in the office or production of Ring of Honor that are just going to be reassimilated back into Sinclair Broadcasting somewhere else, I'm sure Greg, the office boy, I'm sure will be just fine, because they'll just go back to whatever occupation they had in Sinclair. There's going to be probably less than 10 people actually out of a job, and those are the people, most of them, that Tony Khan ought to be looking at bringing in to work in his company, because they're the ones that have been there that have fucking done almost everything in that company for the past however long, 10 years, whatever.
But it tells you something about what he thinks of everyone when everyone finds out about the announcement by watching it on TV.
Well, actually, no, that's Sinclair's lack of giving a shit, because as we found out, they're a bunch of fucking Republican crackpots. No, that should have been their job, to tell the people that needed to know, that had been there and been loyal, what was going on, but they couldn't be bothered to do that because they wanted to. And that's another thing. You think they're haggling with Tony over the price when they saw a chance to get rid of this thing? Because obviously it hurt Ring of Honor, the pandemic, more than any other wrestling promotion, because they were owned by a giant conglomerate company, $1 billion+ company that had wrestling was neither their primary occupation, nor did they have an inordinate love for it like Tony does. It had been a business deal and programming for them, and then they weren't about to not undergo all of the COVID regulations and blah, blah, blah because of liability issues. We went through, they couldn't open a wrestling school or have training camps for the first couple of years. They were scared they'd get sued. So they did all that and they spent all the money. And then they ended up in the hole and finally they made the decision, well, we're not going to do this anymore, at least in this form. And then they see a chance to get out of it. And that's why I say that can happen with you. It's happened. That's why that Tony Khan should be careful about people on his TV show with pizza cutters and all that other shit that they just think because it's wrestling and they're used to indie wrestling and their sensibilities are different. One stupid thing can cause the television broadcasting conglomerate to say, we don't want this shit on our air. Or we don't want the liability, or we don't want the perception, or we don't want the whatever. All it takes is somebody intricately involved in either the broadcasting or the delivery or whatever of your program to say, nah, this ain't right. We don't want to do this. And you're fucked, regardless of how much the fans like it. Whether it was a single TV station taking off a program in the territory days, you lost the town, or TBS 20 years ago with WCW, or Sinclair with Ring of Honor. And we just don't want to do this anymore. This ain't our main fucking occupation. And there you go.
Do you think Sinclair is the kind of company that would demand a sale, or would they do a sale instead of a standard sale where it's kind of like the old WWE deal where instead of cash, we'll just buy a lot of advertising from you.
Well, there was, and I don't remember every single detail, and I'm probably not going to reveal who it was to begin with. Let's just say there was someone in Sinclair Broadcasting, not in Ring of Honor, but in Sinclair Broadcasting, told 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, before the pandemic, well, we would sell Ring of Honor to you for such and such amount of money, and if you promise to buy the TV time slots for a 12-month or 24-month period or whatever, well, of course they would. That would be millions of dollars. And it didn't happen. But it was offered, not from Ring of Honor, but from somebody in Sinclair to another person who was not a major player, but a player in the wrestling business. Now, when you add up the fact that, and I know everybody, all these fucking goofs on Twitter and everything, oh, nobody watches TV anymore. Yeah, fucking right. Idiots. It's still television, and it's still thousands of dollars per hour in every market, unless you're in Scranton at 3 a.m. on Sunday, and then you can probably get it for $6.95 or whatever. So just if you tallied up the cost of an infomercial, taking the place of all of the Ring of Honor programs on all 70-something stations that they were on, and some of them, I know a lot of people say, well, they were on at midnight on such and such. Well, they were also on at good times, bad times, and indifferent times. So if you take them all, 70-something TV stations, an hour a week, some had double runs, and just times what it would cost to buy an infomercial in that spot on all of those stations, you're looking at $4 or $5 million a year. Easily. So that, if somebody was going to do that, then I'm sure they would sell those time slots, but I don't think that's happening.
One last question. Personal feelings aside for a moment.
Yes.
But you talked about Delirious in the past. His future's now up in the air, but he has obviously backstage experience, a booker, trainer. There are some other people behind the scenes you could talk about with Ring of Honor. Do you think Tony finds a job for Gary Juster? Or is this the end of Gary Juster's run in professional wrestling?
Well, that has come up several times, the end of his run in wrestling, and he's popped right back up like fungus on a shower curtain. No, the thing is, they don't seem to have a problem booking their buildings, which is what Gary was primarily doing, was booking the buildings for the Ring of Honor events and setting those up. And, and also Gary's older than me. Maybe he feels like it's time to retire and just go to the Starbucks near his house rather than trying to find every Starbucks in the United States of America. But I don't know.
Well, Tony will have his hands full with Ring of Honor, and he had his hands full as a booker this past weekend with AEW Revolution, which of course, as we all know, was from Orlando, Florida this year.
Yes, as everyone is well aware, was from Orlando, Florida. The first match, I got to be honest, and I know because I saw your tweet that you were shocked and felt the same way. This was the best Chris Jericho match in recent memory. And how long's it been since we've seen something with Jericho that actually this worked and did what it was supposed to do?
I think it was probably the best Jericho match in AEW, even taking like the title match with Cody, whatever you want to say from the early days. I think this was the best match from Jericho in AEW, the best Jericho match in years, actually, in my opinion.
Do you think it was because the first move of the match, Eddie suplexed him right on top of his head and woke him up?
I think it's because he didn't work a Jericho match. It was something different. It was an Eddie Kingston style match more than a Jericho style match.
Yeah. And that can happen. That, it was Davey Richards and Michael Elgin in Florida Wrestlemania weekend in 2012. One of the pay-per-views that Go Fight Live threw off the air for us. But no, the match, everybody went crazy over it that was actually able to see it later on. And they said it was the match of the year, and that's when people were demanding that Michael Elgin be the Ring of Honor champion, and et cetera, et cetera. And if you go back and look at it, for the first 10 minutes, it was a regular match that they would have. I'm not saying that's bad, but there was nothing, stunning or outstanding about it. And all of a sudden, they did some kind of suplex spot off the top rope. And they both almost landed on their heads and killed themselves, and they popped up, and it woke the people and them up. And the next 10 minutes was the goddamnest thing you ever seen in your life. And by the time it was over with, they're throwing the babies in the air, right? But sometimes that can, and this happened right off the bat with Jericho and Kingston. But he sold it, but he was still okay, and Eddie was all over him, and obviously Kingston was the babyface with this crowd, and they're chanting, "Fuck him up, Eddie." Blah, blah, blah. So Jericho went with it. I mean, that was where they were trying to point the people anyway with the buildup on this. But as soon as he turns the tables on Kingston and he gives the crowd the finger, and they traded the chops and they had a stiff fight, Jericho goes to the eyes. I'm looking at my notes now, and I just realized he undid a turnbuckle pad. They never did anything with it, did they?
Oh, I don't remember it now.
That's right.
I forgot about that.
He just took the turnbuckle pad off, but I don't think they ever did anything with the turnbuckle. And referee Aubrey just sits there and looks at it anyway. The suplex off the apron to the floor by Jericho on Kingston, I was surprised at both those. I was surprised Jericho went for it more than Kingston. I got to say, Eddie doesn't need muscles. His gimmick is he's the fucking crazy mechanic down the street, but he should keep his top up. It looks better. Did you see when Jericho went for the lion salt, Eddie knew he was too far out, and he tried to scooch in on his ass for it, and Jericho he didn't completely miss him, but he almost blistered him with his knees. But anyway, they had, as you said, it was an Eddie Kingston match rather than the same thing that Jericho always does. And finally, they went for some false finishes. Jericho went for the Judas. Eddie ducked, 2 back fists, a stretch plum, and a tap out. To the biggest win of Kingston's career, the right finish to do. It was a heck of a fight. And as we said, the best Jericho match maybe that he's done in AEW, because it was what it needed to be, and it was different. And then the end of the deal with the handshake, it was a simple heel turn, but they booed the fuck out of Jericho when Eddie smartass walked over there and stuck his hand out because Jericho had said, if you can beat me, I'll shake your hand and tell you I respect you. But of course you can't do that. So Kingston sticks his hand out and Jericho looks at him and blows him off and leaves. And people, if he had concertoed him 5 times, the people wouldn't have booed Jericho any more than if he just walked off and refused the handshake. So start to finish, that was a great way to start the day.
Fantastic opener. Best Jericho match. I've killed him when his stuff is the worst and his bad stuff is the worst. His stuff the last few weeks and this match has been great. Hope it continues. If he really wants to, here's the interesting challenge. And Jericho seems committed to what he's doing. If you're going to be a heel, how are you going to come out and have them not sing that song? That's the only thing. No matter what he does, they're all about that song. They're singing it. But it doesn't matter if Jericho's there or not. It doesn't matter if he's a heel or babyface. How do you get to come out to that song without them singing it? I don't know if it's possible now.
What about if they were just to play a track of his vocal without the music?
Oh my God.
You just hear him singing it, but there's no music to really get him into it. And then it would be annoying and irritating.
I like that idea. Hopefully they do that.
That would be a thing they could make him heel with.
And it's really cool to see Eddie Kingston get the biggest win of his career in a hot opener on this show against Jericho. Some would say this was, maybe the second best match on the show. Can't say anything bad about it. I loved it. I thought it was great. The commentating sucked, but it sucked show-wide, and those 3 sucked together. I dare someone to find Tony Schiavone say anything that requires a brain. He just screams out nothing nonstop throughout the show. He sucks. But other than that, Great opening match.
Actually, Tony and Excrement were starting, I noticed it in the Wardlow business later on. They are starting to know things that they shouldn't know unless they're mind readers or have the power of seeing 5 or 10 seconds ahead. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, or they have Tony Khan in their headset, yes.
Well, yeah, but they're saying things that are not apparent to the viewer, like that they've picked up on them, and then they should wait 10 or 15 seconds for the thing to actually happen before they pick up on it. But anyway, well, we started good, and I don't know how, honestly, that you would have done a match order for this show and not had an issue somewhere, because
yeah, I agree.
I mean, they did too much. They did too much of the things that they did. There's no way to separate all of the chaos with normal matches, because there was very few normal matches, a lot of chaos. But they next went with the tag team title match, the 3-way triple threat with Jungle Boy and Dino Douche defending against Fish and O'Reilly and the Hardy Boys. And because Fish and O'Reilly are in it, I said, I'll try. See what happens. See how far I get. And O'Reilly and Jungle Boy in at the start, nice stuff. Jungle Boy is like a piece of Play-Doh in that he absorbs what's around him. If he's got a guy that can actually work and knows how to wrestle and can lead, he can have a tremendous match. And if he's in with the Trampoline Cowboys, it's just stupid. So it differs. But as soon as the Hardy Boys got in, the tumbling began. I've got to say, I didn't like this match at all, and you can imagine why, because it was a 3-way with the gymnastics. But did somebody have a talk with Dino Douche? He actually looked in this match like he knew what he was doing. I haven't seen this in 2.5 years, but if somebody had seen this match, they would think, we should fucking hire that guy. It just, I guess sooner or later a blind squirrel finds a nut, but the main part of the match, dives, no tags, 4 and 6 ways. The corpse referee is the ref. So, and if you notice now, everybody, even the people who ought to know what they're doing, have started doing this deal where when one guy tags in, he'll immediately turn around and tag another guy on the apron. Like that is a thing that has ever been done, and it makes a double team legal where now you can both get in. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed that for a while. It's not a new thing.
How do they start making this shit up? Are you allowed to do that in basketball? Can you just make shots from, outside the out of bounds line and behind the backboard and just come up with new rules on the fly?
No, but I think that's going to be the next big thing in basketball. Kind of a control your narrative kind of situation where the star players just make up their own rules mid-game. Get their own referees. Maybe it could be Rick Knox.
Well, for a guy in his mid-60s, he's got cardio, I'll tell you. Because, I know he doesn't do anything. He's not working, but he's in the rings walking around in circles for this whole fucking match. Of course, we had the Hardleys and O'Reilly and Fish arguing with each other about teaming up against Jungle Boy and Dino. But they, obviously each one wants to come out on top, but blah, blah, blah. There's no rhyme. There's no reason or flow. Sometimes they tag, sometimes they don't. Everybody just did shit to each other over and over. I don't know what the fuck is happening, and this won't end. That's a quote from my notes. I said, now half the guys in the match have disappeared. Now they all come back in one at a time to do spots and roll out again. Now everything comes to a halt. Lots of false finishes. Loud noises. Did you see the part? I'm going to try to describe this for everybody. The Hardy Boys went to double vertical suplex Jungle Boy. They've got him hooked and they pick him up. But there's Kyle O'Reilly walking toward him, so they toss Jungle Boy upside down they hand him to Kyle O'Reilly, who's now holding him in like a position you'd have somebody for a tombstone. And then the Hardy Boys super kick both of O'Reilly's legs so that he drops Jungle Boy in an inadvertent tombstone pile driver. Did you catch that?
Come on, you know how proud those guys were of themselves when they came up with that?
Well, that's when I said, fuck it. And I fast forwarded. Thank God it was only about 2 or 3 minutes. Jungle Boy and Dino hit a finish on one of the Hardy Boys. 1, 2, 3. Thank God. I don't. Grown adults accept that kind of shit as a wrestling match. I'm still stunned and amazed. Any thoughts before we move along?
I didn't like it. I don't like these kind of matches. I'm happy they didn't start the show with it, which would have been my fear and maybe Jericho's fear. Maybe he was smart enough to go to Tony and say, no way. Look, I just don't like it. And I think in terms of the style of matches, in terms of the layout, the Young Bucks have a specific, defined style of matches. I'm sorry to all the Young Bucks supporters out there who think they are this amazing freeform team that can work any style. No, they work one style. And if you're into that, they're probably really good at it. But for me, it seems like soft wrestling for soft fans. I like Kingston Jericho. I like Punk MJF. I don't even want to go to my kids' gymnastic shows anymore. I've seen all the routines. I've seen all the flips. There's going to be nothing new. I'm sick of all that. I really don't like, there's a lot of tag teams, but I don't like the tag team division the way it's booked. And it's all because of the Young Bucks. But listen, if you're a fan of this style of gymnastics, I'm sure it's great, but I like the good parts of the show.
Why don't they start, they've done the gymnastics to death. Start doing the plate spinning. Because I watch the Ed Sullivan Show reruns every Sunday night on MeTV. And goddamn it, there has to be at least 20 or 30 plate spinning acts out of work these days.
Well, they're dead now. Ed Sullivan went off the air 50 years ago.
Well, some of them look kind of perky.
For what year were you on? I'm about to say 1971, but it was probably before then.
I saw a plate spinner the other night from the late 60s. It couldn't have been more than 25, so he'd only be 75 now. That's a talent. It's like riding a bicycle. You never forget. Once you learn how to fall off a bicycle, you never forget. So they could have the plate spinning, and then people could be oohing and eyeing whether the plate was going to wobble and fall off the thing. And it
actually, the only other note is that Matt Jackson, once again, I give him so much credit. Despite whatever adversity he has gone through in life, he kicks out of everything. Doesn't matter. Throw him through a fucking building. He'll kick right out of it. It's so stupid. They're so stupid. Their matches are stupid. I hate their stupid part of the show.
Stupid. That's a word we could use to describe.
You know, can I say one last thing?
Yes, you can. Now that I've pissed you off.
It's just remarkable when I watch these fucking awful wrestlers. It's remarkable that I still have my hair. And I thank God that I have kept my hair. And of course, Jim, the listeners out there can keep their hair as well.
Well, you know, we all have a problem with that. Jerking our hair out. As a matter of fact, halfway through this pay-per-view, Stacy came up and took all of the silverware away from me. I was eating dinner in front of the TV. She left me a plastic knife and fork just in case I wanted to commit any kind of self-harm over this thing. But I instead just went to tearing my hair out again. Folks, if you're losing your hair without tearing it out, well, that's nothing unusual because 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35 years old. I understand that goes up to 9 out of 10 men once you get past 80 are going to experience some form of hair loss. You need to get started early, folks. More than 50 million men in the United States alone suffer from male pattern baldness, and hundreds of millions more around the world. And as you can see from some foreign countries, many people do not have hair on their ass either. But the folks at Keeps have more 5-star reviews than any of their competitors and offer generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved medications that can prevent hair loss. But you got to start early, folks. You want to keep what you've got, because these treatments, they can take a couple of months to take effect, so you got to start now. And that's why we're going to help you out save some money, because Keeps offers convenient virtual doctor consultations. That means over the internet. You don't have to go in person. They'll deliver the medicine straight to your door every 3 months. You don't have to leave the house. They've got a 24/7 care and support team of expert medical advisors, prescribers, and care specialists to support you in making your hair goals a reality. Brian, I know you're a man that's had hair goals all of your life, but the folks at Keeps are the first people who've had a 24/7 care and support team just to support your hair goals.
That sounds like exactly what I need. A 24/7 care team for my hair? Sign me up.
That's right. And treatments start at just $10 a month, because Keeps offers those generic versions. They're not trying to gouge you. They're trying to make you a wolf man, a werewolf come to life with hair from every pore of your body.
No, just from your head.
Coming out of your cheeks, your forehead, the backs of your knuckles.
This is not a John Landis film. You will have hair on your head. You will keep the hair on your head. You will not have hair on the rest of your body growing.
Yes, and even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night can be covered with hair when they go to Keeps.com and the moon is full and bright. So remember, prevention is the key. When it comes to your hair, save more, spend less if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss. Go to Keeps.com, Keeps, Keeps.com/JCE to get your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com/JCE, the first month free. How do we do it? I don't know.
All right, well, let's keep on going with this review of the AEW Revolution extravaganza from Orlando, Florida.
Well, the next match was for the highly prized gold hemorrhoid pillow. It was the 6-man ladder match. Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, Christian Cage, the man who outworks everyone twice a year, Wardlow, Keith Lee, and our little dog Pockets, just to make sure we won't take it seriously. And as we mentioned, they hung the gold hemorrhoid pillow over the ring again, and you got to get the ladder and get the blah, blah, blah. And again, I started this. I said, I'll try. Because for all the reasons of why do you put your big 3 beasts, Keith Lee, Wardlow, and Hobbs, in a ladder match? Then why do you have them interacting with each other this early in Hobbs and Lee's careers, and with Wardlow being featured? The last thing you want to do is make any of these guys look smaller than they are. Then you put the mascot in to yuck it up. This is supposed to be a qualifying match for a world championship shot. And, you know, they started a 6-way immediately. In one match, as I said, they'll kill the mystique behind Lee or Wardlow or Hobbs. We'll see it, so we can't imagine what it'll be like, but it won't be as good as we could imagine. And then the 3 big guys started off facing off, and Pockets came in and started doing the fake kicks to the shin, and all 3 of those guys were standing there for it. And within a couple of seconds, he had his hands in his pockets, and he was not only throwing drop kicks, but climbing the ladder with his hands in his pockets. And that's where I said, you know what? Watching a match with this guy and critiquing it just dignifies him as a fucking wrestler. Everybody involved in this match comes out poorer because he's in it. Everybody that wastes their time watching it comes out poorer because they wasted their time. You've got potential superstars in this match in Hobbs and Lee and Wardlow and Starks, and an old veteran, I don't know what he's done to deserve this, like Christian Cage, and you're making them look foolish by sticking this guy in this fucking thing. Plus, again, you've got to have baby faces beating up other baby faces for no reason. The whole thing is ridiculous. So I fast forwarded. I said, if they stretch your pockets out early, then I'll start watching it again. And they didn't. Wardlow got the donut pillow. What did I miss, if anything?
You know, the usual. I mean, we've seen a lot of these matches. They don't really have the special quality anymore. I, like you, disagree with putting several guys like Wardlow and Keith Lee into this match. As soon as you saw Orange Cassidy, I had the same reaction. Not the same, but I had a reaction similar to yours. And oh no, but I watched the match. I forgot it was a brass ring. I kept looking at it saying, it's a golden circle? What does that signify? I forgot it was a brass ring. And Wardlow won, and I guess that's, if we can get past the match, that's kind of the story there, is just Wardlow gets this big victory.
I'm not in any way upset that Wardlow won. I'm upset that Keith Lee was in it in his third week in the company and didn't win, or that he was even in it. It wouldn't have helped him if he'd won it, because it's a fucking ladder match.
And maybe I'm wrong, because I didn't take notes, but I think this may have been the match also where Danhausen appeared.
Well, I didn't see Danhausen, so it probably was, unless he invaded one of the girls' matches. What did he do?
He just kind of showed up in the middle of the ring and made faces. And then he was gone.
All right, but anyway, as I said, you know, and I'm a big fan of Starks and Hobbs and Wardlow and Keith Lee when he does his shit right and they don't sabotage him. But I can't dignify actually watching the fucking idiot. So anyway. Then we had Tony Schiavone announcing a major new signing. Swerve Strickland. Briscoes! Jesus Christ, there's signs on street corners now. When are the Briscoes going to go to AEW and wrestle FTR? And so Swerve, who was just over in NXT, he did a promo where he asked people whose house it was at Swerve's house, and he sounded as excited as if he was in a medically induced coma. And then he walked back to the back. Was that a pay-per-view fucking announcement?
If you wanted to do it on the pay-per-view, it should have been maybe a little quicker and more concise, but at least I will say it appeared, based on the home viewing experience, that the people there did somewhat pop for him. I was surprised actually by that, just because I wasn't popping for him.
They're going to pop for anybody that comes from the other place because it's like they're accepting refugees. They feel sorry for these people. They're trying to help them in over the fucking railing of the boat and dry them off and give them a good cup of hot cocoa. Put a blanket around them.
All right, maybe some beam, but we'll beam to the next segment, I assume.
Yes, we will. The TBS women's title was on the line between Ty Conti and Jade Cargill. And Jane won. Your thoughts?
Now, why wouldn't you just watch this?
Because this fucking Ty Conti and the other one, Anna Jay, are without a doubt the phoniest sounding. Have you heard the interviews? They're the one that hangs out with Ty Conti. That's Anna Jay, right?
Anna Jay, yeah.
She's the one that comes out to make a save with a chair and just walks over carrying the chair. Like, I'm glad that she's not a firefighter. My house would have burned down.
Well, she's new to chairs.
Oh, God. They're the same ones that have the fake fights in the back and all this hoo-ha, and I didn't want to see this. Well, did anybody want to see this?
Yeah, actually, I think, and I don't know how much of it would be about Ty Conti, but I think a lot of people, myself included, are intrigued by Jade, especially hearing that she's training with Danielson. So you start looking for improvements. You're starting to look to see what she's doing in there, if she's getting more comfortable. Obviously, it's a big investment. Well, we don't know financially, but
you think we're going to see any improvement in a match with Ty Conti?
Probably not.
Okay.
Right now.
Then I'll check back in.
But
later.
Still, I think your critiques of Jade Cargill would be valuable, the same way your critiques of, who have you not just destroyed on this? I'm going through my list here, of a Kingston Jericho match. I think your critique of a Jade Cargill could help her, even if you forget about who she's wrestling. Just because, again, they put a belt on her, they gave her the big debut, they gave her Shaq, they have some kind of plans for her. She's committed to it right now. I think she deserves your critique.
Well, as soon as she has the Jericho Kingston match, I'll critique it. In the meantime, can we move on?
Yes.
All right. Like Mussolini! Instead, it's Friedman. That was great. I love that because you hear the opening strains, the guitar licks. You think it's Cult of Personality, and suddenly it's MJF yanking your chain. I like that. And off his music switches to his, and here he comes. So, you, Mr. Music Business Background, I know that the music that Punk came out to was what he used years ago in Ring of Honor, but what is the song and who is the artist?
I forget the song name. It's AFI. It was actually a great album. I have that album when it came out. I used to play it all the time. The girl I used to know who liked that album, and she got me into that album. It's a great album, and he used to come out to that song, which is, I think, the first song on the album. I just don't know the name of it.
Who is AFI?
They be a band that played music similar to the music you heard on the... I don't know how to describe them. They were a band, I guess you could say maybe emo-ish, goth-ish. They were going through a lot of issues, and they made a lot of good songs.
Well, anyway, he changed it up a little bit, and they mentioned it for the folks who didn't understand why it was different music. They mentioned what it was. So not the, again, I didn't hear the song title, but they said that it was Ring of Honor's or Punk's old Ring of Honor music. Anyway, from the time that they came out and they're standing in the ring, both guys' facials are great. Their attitude, their demeanor, as the Fink used to say. During the in-ring introductions, to give it a big match feel, like a sporting event. And not just this, here he comes down now the aisle to his custom-made music, doing his pre-choreographed routine. But they're in the ring, it's a fucking match, it's a fight. And both these guys know how to, especially Punk, obviously, just because of his experience, know how to command your attention while they're either not doing much or not doing anything. Because the way they walk around with attitude and expression on their face and the body language for the people in the big arena that can't see their expressions. And they took their time. That was the longest fucking chain I've ever seen in a chain match. And I thought that might give them troubles, but they seem to. I got to be honest, even guys who have had some chain matches have issues more often with the chain than what I saw them have in this match. A couple of times they were, if you step over the wrong rope, you got to go back in and back out because you're wound around and all that stuff, and that just happens. But they didn't have a lot of trouble as compared to some I've seen. But usually it's like an 8-foot chain or a 10-foot chain. This thing, when they each had their backs to the turnbuckle, it pretty much reached. So anyway, it just from the start of it, they took their time. Everything meant something. They didn't, the first time that MJF whipped Punk with the chain, he just did it once and Punk sold it. And you could see it left marks. It left link marks on his back. MJF wrapped the chain around his hand and punched Punk twice, just twice, and he was bleeding. And by the way, my new favorite magician is not Chris Angel, it's CM Punk. Chris Angel has nothing on Punk. He's got the magic touch. Did you see it? I ain't going to talk about it.
I didn't see it. Obviously, I saw Mr. Friedman, as you called him before, but I did not see Mr. Punk.
No, you didn't see Mr. Friedman because we didn't either. He disappeared for 45 seconds. But anyway, yes, Punk's got the magic touch. Did you hear when MJF got the microphone and told Punk to quit and Punk said, "Eat shit"? JR came in and like it. That's the Vince line, right? Did you catch that?
I did catch that. And once again, I thought the commentators were a little over the top and took away from this match at times.
Well, but I liked that little callback too. Learn to eat shit and like the taste of it, pal. I liked when Punk jerked MJF off the buckle, headbutt in the nuts, Punk does the bulldog with the chain. And Punk's color was really coming. He was fucking great. And he's whipping MJF with the thing. Punk goes for the GTS, the go to sleep. MJF gets the sleeper with the chain around the neck. And Punk's fading and the people are chanting. And then the kick off the buckle, quick 2 count. This is wrestling. Again, they traded. MJF got the armbar. Punk rolled into the Anaconda Vice. Anaconda. Your Anaconda don't want none. MJF gets out by pulling hair. Imagine that. The knee lift to the chain, or with the chain, was where we were just talking about. MJF takes a bump to the floor. And I know he's young and inexperienced, and I felt the same way when I was doing it first time on TV. But I don't know what he was doing. The camera was on Punk in the ring for 30 seconds. And then finally MJF got in. I love him, but he's still working on that home magic kit for kids thing he used to order out of the back of the comic books. Who was it? Marshall Brodine's Magic Tricks. But anyway, then they go out to the floor. Now they're out on the floor. They're giving us a little bit of everything. It's not 100 miles an hour. It's not overkill of everything. It's not back and forth with no selling. They're having a fucking fight. And Punk bashes MJF not from pillar to post, but pillar to steps. And then goes for the knee lift into the steps and hurts his leg. That's going to play a part in this. This may be the first gimmick match in AEW history that has made sense. Punk calls for the go to sleep, but his leg is bad and he collapses. And then they fought on the apron. That's where they got tied up in the chain, where MJF had to bop in and out a time or two to get tied up out of the ropes. The reverse tombstone on the apron. I hate apron spots. And I don't want to downplay the danger of this one, but if you're going to do this, was a controlled situation. The guys that are jumping off the top rope or flinging each other on these aprons, that's not a controlled situation. This was controlled, and both of them sold it like death. So a lot of these things in a blow-off match, that's where you want to do them. And if we didn't see them every week, they would have even more impact. Then we get to the part, it couldn't be perfect. And I gotta, right now, I was vibrating. I was hopping up and down. I was even backing some stuff up to watch it again. And then MJF goes under the ring and pulls out a bag, and it's thumbtacks. And seriously, come on, guys, and I'm just talking to the two of you now. You're two of the best talents in the business currently. You're having a classic match on a major pay-per-view. This bullshit was completely unnecessary. It's just validates the goof and the garbage match participants, constituents, and it encourages every jack-off wannabe mud show fuck with a 1/100th of your talent that this is somehow a thing that actual real wrestlers and real stars do. And it's stupid. And it ain't going to win anybody anything. It's fucking stupid. Did I mention that word? And they teased falling the tax, and then MJF superplexed Punk on the tax. And this ran a risk of ruining this fucking classic for me, because why? It's like watching your children, take up doing fucking hard drugs. Why? It's so unnecessary. And now they've ruined a lot of the ring for bumps. I took the bump off the scaffold. I would do that again before I would just take a bump in thumbtacks. Not only for money, but just because it's stupid. Anyway, somehow MJF got unhooked there. I didn't see how it was, but he called for Wardlow several times. And finally, here comes Wardlow. And this is where the floor camera was behind Wardlow, and I could see, because I then later on went back and looked, he starts feeling, because MJF is screaming for the ring. Well, he starts feeling for the ring. the floor camera was behind him. You couldn't see it good. So the floor camera starts to truck around Wardlow's left side. And just as you can start seeing it, that's where I think it was Tony, but it may have been excrement too. Oh, he can't find it. Great. If we'd have seen that for ourselves before you called it, he hadn't gotten the idea over yet that he couldn't really find it to anybody but the guys who had been in the finish meeting, apparently, and knew that it was going to take place. Anyway, couldn't find the ring. So Punk took that opportunity to hit the GTS on MJF. And then MJF fell into the tacks and did a funny, back arch type of thing. That wasn't the right reaction there. You don't want it funny. The tacks are screwing everything up. But then Punk looks at Wardlow, and Wardlow looks at Punk, and Wardlow finds the ring and leaves it on the apron to a huge pop and walks off. And Punk gets the ring and grabs MJF and gives him the finger. MJF spits in his face. Punk nails him with the ring one time, 1, 2, 3. If there had been a shortage of thumbtacks in the United States of America on the day of this match, this would have been the closest thing to a perfect gimmick match that I've seen in years. Your thoughts, Brian?
I agree with some of your criticisms. Hated the thumbtacks. Hated the commentary. In terms of the two participants, I thought took me out of it for a second when Punk started using the chain. And just the way he was working it, it didn't look the greatest.
Well, I saw that also. And if you notice, here's the thing. They're using a real chain.
Right.
And if you go back and watch, Punk had pulled it for where he thought he was going. And MJF anticipated and bowed his back down a little bit. And the first one especially, it was like it didn't quite get there. But yeah, there was a couple of MJFs looked better on Punk, and we saw the marks on Punk, so for good reason. But yeah, I got you there.
But I thought it was great. I think this entire feud has been the example of what a lot of people like me want wrestling today to be like, and we don't understand why there isn't a full-time promotion that just treats things seriously. This feud was great. Give it to Punk. He got great color twice in 1 week. Who was the last guy in the business to do that? Used to be all the time, and then all of a sudden it went away.
Yeah.
Wednesday, and again on Sunday, great color. Hate to say it, but I hope you bleed a lot more, CM Punk. But really good, and, they did the 2 matches. Punk wins the second one. It almost feels like it's not the time to do a third match. It feels like it is the time maybe to move on with MJF and Wardlow. I don't know what you do with Punk.
Well, no, now I agree. I had said beforehand, if it was me, I would have had MJF win the first 2 and then Punk win the blow off. After this, they can't blow anything else off. This was so good. And it was an ultimate, fucking finisher. And they've got the right turn for Punk to make, or for MJF to make rather, so he doesn't just go out a loser. He'll say, I'll deal with Punk on my time, but Wardlow, and that he gives him a graceful exit out of the thing. So in this, but I would have had another match of some description that didn't have the heavy, dog collar, end all be all, whatever. But no, I agree with you now. They must move on.
This feud has been so well done. It's been so intelligently done. And now we're going into whatever Punk's going to do. And I have a lot of faith in CM Punk's quality control. I have a lot of faith, maybe more than almost anyone in wrestling right now. And I have to say, since the Jericho feud, everything MJF has been a part of has made sense and been great. And this feud is the greatest in AEW's history, and maybe the best in wrestling in years. It gives me a lot of faith going into MJF Wardlow. And that makes me want to ask you the question, seeing the crowd reactions he's starting to get, seeing what he could do in the ring on a limited basis as a heel, just killing people with the powerbomb. But seeing how the MJF Punk program was booked and how things made sense and how people react to MJF a certain way, you got to think Wardlow's about to come out of this a major star.
Oh, yeah, they're into him and they love the power bombs and they loved the couldn't find the ring, and they've been wanting this for a while since they've juiced it up again. Remember, they were teasing this 2 years ago, and if they'd have did it then, Jesus, because they had only been together for 6 weeks. So thankfully, they put it on the back burner, and then they've, established some history between these guys. And obviously, we're not going to see Wardlow and MJF right off. We'll get Wardlow and Spears. So here comes the power bombs. And maybe MJF can, certainly not FTR. I hope that group is dissolved at this point. But maybe MJF can get a couple of other people to feed to Wardlow. And then, again, the first match with MJF and Wardlow, that's got to be Wardlow's first loss. Because if then he beats MJF, well, then why go any further? But that means that they have to just give Wardlow, put something in his bank account first, not just beating job guys, but actually beating people close to or doing the bidding of MJF and getting closer to him. And then, boom, MJF fucks him and sets him back, and then he's got to get on the comeback trail, blah, blah, blah.
And I guess what happened, because he won the ladder match, he gets the winner of Sammy versus Scorpio Sky for the TNT title.
Yeah, what did I say? The world title earlier. It's one of their many titles. and does MJF somehow piss in his post toasties over that one? Do you want to put the belt on him right now? Or how he still actually hasn't come out of under MJF's contractual obligation, that contract. And here's something, somebody on Twitter said, Tony Khan can spend $40 million for Ring of Honor, but he can't buy poor Wardlow out of his contract with MJF.
That's true.
See, when you start doing this shit where all your loopholes aren't closed and your logic doesn't make sense from one segment or talent to another, this is where people start asking these questions. Having said that, why was CM Punk and MJF not the main event? Because I looked and I said, fucking hell, we got half this show to go. How are they going to, any of them going to follow this? Right? And most of them didn't. But I understand the concept of wanting to put your world title match on last and make the world championship the most important, regardless of what's going on. But this is why Eddie Graham invented the lights out match. The main event is the world title match, and then the lights out match goes afterwards because it's not sanctioned. And that's where you can do shit like this that nobody can follow, even the world champion. But they didn't do that.
And I will say, well, let me just say here, because it's, I guess, the time, I really liked the Punk MJF match, but the latter half of the show, especially the last 2 matches, I was falling asleep a bunch of times. I couldn't stay awake. It's a long show.
Well, do you remember all the times that you've gone to the movies and you've really enjoyed the movie and you come to the big climactic scene where they blow off the fireworks and everything explodes, and then the movie lasts another hour and 45 minutes? That happens all the time, right?
No, but I think for this analogy to work, it would be the movie lasts another 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Oh, well, they followed CM Punk and MJF with the women's title, Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. And I like Thunder Rosa, and we've had good things to say about Britt Baker. I started watching it. I lost interest. I got fidgety. It kept going. I fast forwarded. At one point, Britt Baker curb stomped Thunder Rosa onto the title belt and got a 2 count, and they kept going. And then Reba got up on the apron, and Thunder Rosa speared her off the apron through the ropes, and both of them went to the floor, and that looked as ugly as a mud fence for both of them. And then she knocked out Jamie Hayter and rolled in the ring, and Britt Baker gave her a curb stomp on the mat, not the belt, and that was the 3 count. And that went past 20 minutes, counting the introductions. It was very, very long. What do they not understand about, okay, if you're going to follow the match on the show that had the most interest going in, and that's a bloody, violent gimmick match, you not only settle it down with a regular wrestling match amongst the girls or the guys with a clean finish, but it needs to be short. And that's your little palate cleanser. And then you can start building things back up again. This was the opposite because it took forever and they were still doing everything they could fucking do. But by now in the show, you've seen everything that everybody can do. Pretty much, but you're going to see it some more. It'll be the same shit, but you're going to see more of it. Did I miss anything?
Oh, I really couldn't tell you. I just watched Punk MJF. This was my chance to take a break and smoke a joint, and that's what I did.
Well, I wish, I didn't even have a piece of fucking cake. I didn't have a cake. I didn't have Twinkies. I didn't have anything to help get me through this. But up next was Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. And Jim Ross was nice enough to shout out Bobby Fulton in Chillicothe, Ohio. So we appreciated that. And again, we asked the question, can Bryan Danielson do it a good Moxley match? And the jury may still be out. This was a better Moxley match. They did start wrestling, and they knew better than to start fast with a bunch of shit after what we'd seen anyway. And they started turning it up with the chops and the kicks and the forearms. Positive things. I like Bryan Danielson's attitude and heel demeanor. It's still fantastic. In this, Danielson kept him in the ring. This was the only Jon Moxley match I think I've ever seen where anything outside on the floor was minimal. And as a matter of fact, it came up with, did you see the part where Danielson did a dive out on the floor? Moxley caught him. They never went down. He landed on his feet, and they started the hockey fight. And that exchange was not good. For either Danielson or Moxley, it looked like an amateur tough man contest with both guys blown up. The punches were so fake and weak. I don't know why they feel like they have to do. Danielson's work is usually impeccable. But the best thing about that exchange was the guy in the back on the front row with the sign that said Meltzer fears Cornette. That got a lot of Twitter play. But as this went on, dare I say, it got tedious. And I haven't felt that way about Bryan Danielson before, but now they're trying to do the Japanese strong style stuff where they just kneel there and let the other guy kick them or chop or kick and chop. And then Moxley got busted open. And I once again, I'm like you, I saw the magic. But the match was at a standstill pretty much. The crowd was silent. Moxley was trying to outjuice Punk so he can be the most violent. If this match was on the show, then Punk and MJF shouldn't have been. If Punk and MJF was on the show, then this match shouldn't have been. Because they're doing the same thing. Blood. And I guarantee, I don't know how the guys feel these days. In the old days, there would have been an issue in the back between Moxley and Punk, having it out verbally, if not tempers flaring over who was going to get the juice. Because it was called for in both matches. I'm not saying it wasn't. But MJF and Punk was the one with a lot of interest. You can say that Moxley and Danielson had a lot too, but I give the edge to Punk and MJF for the build and the performances. And they needed it. That's why a smart booker doesn't book both these matches on the same show. But there you had it. So now Moxley is going to try to outjuice Punk. And as a result, it starts looking like some kind of fucking Ian Rotten deathmatch show. The blood might have gotten people back in this a little bit better than it did if they hadn't already seen Punk almost bleed to death, to the point where Jim Ross had to say the fans here almost stunned or asleep because they've seen the blood and they've seen better storytelling So now they're just down to watching these two guys hit each other hard back and forth, and there wasn't a lot of variety in that. And it was long again. So then they trade submission holds. Danielson hits his knee, what I'm sure excrement can pronounce it, but Bushido, Bukaki, the Bukaki knee. Danielson stomps Moxley and gets the triangle, and he's punching him over and over in the face, and then suddenly Moxley just rolls forward and jackknifes him 1, 2, 3. What the fuck? Hold on. Wait a minute. Or, fuck.
Stop hot-shotting.
Well, it'd be better than what kind of finish was after all of that? After all of that, they don't even build to the thing anymore where you're on a roller coaster ride of emotions. You're up and down. Oh my gosh, that is. It's like, well, he's got him in a triangle. He's punched him in the face. Jackknife. Whoop, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that was a bit flat, but then the second best part of the show came up, and actually the thing that got the biggest pop of the entire show. Behind Punk and MJF, the best part of the show was the afterbirth here because they get in a fight, and here comes referees and security. So the security folks, they recovered. And then here comes William Regal. And he gets a huge pop, and he gets a holy shit chant, and he gets in the ring and gets in between Danielson and Moxley, and he turns to Moxley, and he looks at him, and then he slaps the piss out of him. And then the people pop, and Bryan's like, yeah, and then he turns around to Bryan, and he slaps him harder. And he's telling him to make up, this is not the way I taught you people. And the crowds go, yes, yes, yes. And they shake hands, and the people are ecstatic. William Regal with the save of the first substandard, actually, Bryan Danielson match that I could think of, and this was a highlight of the fucking whole show. And at least they're smart enough that Regal didn't sit around too long with nothing to do. What'd you think?
Moxley may be my least favorite professional wrestler. So I wasn't crazy about the match. We'll see. I'm going to keep an open mind about where they go with this little weird grouping of Bryan Danielson with William Regal and Jon Moxley. Maybe it'll be interesting. So I'll keep an open mind, but I'm not a Moxley fan. I can't stand his work. I can't stand it doesn't connect with me. I'll just say that.
I don't think you're the only one.
William Regal, I mean, whatever that says, major pop for him to come out there. Apparently, obviously everyone knows about the history of him and Danielson. I didn't realize him and Moxley feuded at some point, maybe in developmental or something.
Well, no, they didn't feud. I'm sure because Moxley at some point was trained with or under their, there's that connection. But yeah, Regal and Danielson have a little bit more, but still, as long as Regal's there, and hey, by the way, ding, 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 can you imagine if William Regal had been there to make an announcement like the purchase of Ring of Honor on behalf of AEW Wrestling? This is what they need. They don't need a heel authority figure. They need an authority figure that has authority, that has credibility with people, that has bass in his voice, that's a television personality and camera friendly and has the ability to make major announcements sound important, serious, and have gravitas to them instead of, the fucking Adderall for lunch bunch.
But that's not how he's going to be used. He was brought in with this group here, not as an authority figure.
We don't know how, but he's not going to be just tied to these two guys, obviously. William Regal is going to have multiple responsibilities in his company, certainly with training, certainly with fucking, advising these young guys. But however he comes in, that's what they need. They need whether it's a commissioner or whether it's a fucking representative of management or whether it's an administrator or whatever, somebody to be the public face of the company. He's a well-spoken ex-wrestler that everybody in the business likes and respects, and the fans love him, obviously, and he can talk, and he's an experienced performer. That's what that is the most valuable thing that they need right now, is because you can't have Tony out there on TV again ever. My God, it's embarrassing. And you can't have the announcers just say that everything, well, Tony in the back says. You've got to have somebody that's in charge of that program in the people's eyes, that lays the law down when necessary and sticks his finger in somebody's face and says, you're not going to get away with the way you're acting, Bryan Danielson, or whatever.
See, I wouldn't use Regal like that just because he was just used like that for years in NXT. And he was somewhat feckless at times. So I wouldn't use Regal like that. You know what?
Well, that's bad booking.
You want to give someone a good job like that it would work better than what they're doing right now? Jim Ross, the commissioner of AEW.
Well, you know what? That wouldn't be bad either. Because at least he could put his foot down with some authority. I don't know what Paul White's doing, but goddamn, anyway.
That's what I'm saying. When you say, of course they're going to have Regal do all this. Yeah, of course they're going to have Paul White and not bury him on YouTube. Of course they're going to have Mark Henry and not have him do a 30-second, host a 30-second promo every week and then disappear. He can do whatever he wants. Other than sign Cody, he has a budget for everything.
It's like when Hurd was mad at the Midnight Express and didn't want to use them, and Ole was booking and didn't want to upset the apple cart. I was having to drive to Gainesville, Georgia from fucking Charlotte, 210 miles each way, almost every Monday when they were doing syndicated TV, so I could do a 2-minute Louisville Slugger segment. And I'd got old. I'd get in the building at 1 o'clock. I'd find the production crew. I'd be dressed already. I'd grab the talent I was supposed to interview. I'd say, let's get this over with. And I'd be out of there by 3:30. Anyway, they did another one of those black and white movies that Darby Allen likes to do. A car crashed into a bus, and then Darby jumped off of something, and Sting had a flamethrower. And it looks like they spend a lot of money and time to do these things. You would think sooner or later that somebody would figure out what the fuck's going on. Did that mean anything, or was it just a series of images?
Well, Darby has a little bit of a history of doing black and white jackass style work. I really don't know what the connotation is, but boy, Sting with that flamethrower. Goodbye, snow.
Maybe that's what he's got, the flamethrower, so he can get to the ring in the wintertime because it always snows in his entrance. All right, it's a 6-man tag. And the reason for this was simply to get Sting, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara on the show. And I don't have a problem with that. It's good when you get your legendary icon and 2 of your top young baby faces on the show. When you stick them in the ring with a completely unmatched tag team on the other side and then make it absolutely no rules and everybody in at the same time and we're going to fight all around the arena for no reason with job guys, you have just devalued everything else that you might potentially ever do with any top guys. They wonder why that the title match, a lot of the world title match main event, people were fucking checking their watches and scratching their asses. Sting, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara versus Matt Hardy, Andre Olio, and Isaiah Cassidy. Not even a full tag team in there with Jose in the corner. And a trios match. If they're south of the border and everybody agrees to work the right side, then it's a trios match. Otherwise, it's a 6-man tag. They have to sound like basement marks even when they're doing commentary on national television. Who calls it a trios match except newsletter readers? So they jump-started with Darby Allen doing a dive. They did a 6-way on the floor. Darby pulled a garbage can out. Jose was a full-time participant. He's just getting beat up too. There's a chair came into play. They put a garbage can onto Jose or put Jose in the garbage can, depending on how you look at it. And then Darby did a dive on Jose while he was in the garbage can. So I started fast-forwarding. They were at that point all out in the arena, and the Butcher and the Baker and Mark Quinn had become involved. Remember when Mark Quinn was going to be a future superstar because of his amazing athletic talent?
Remember when the Young Bucks put over Private Party as a way to elevate them?
Remember when I told the people what the Young Bucks really did in that finish, and nobody believed me until they saw with hindsight that's exactly what they did? So then Butch Cassidy, Isaiah Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid Sammy Guevara are on some kind of tower on the stage by the entrance, and they did a Spanish fly off that through 2 tables. But fortunately, the Butcher and the Baker carried out another table and then stacked another on top. And I said, fuck this. And I fast forwarded some more. And I stopped when I saw, what the fuck am I seeing? Sting jumped off the balcony and splashed Andre through 3 tables in the back of the arena. But that ain't the finish. So I fast forwarded some more. And apparently then Darby Allen reverse DDT'd Matt Hardy through 2 chairs and then missed the coffin drop, landed on the mat and kind of hit Matt's ass with the back of his head. 1, 2, 3. Good fucking God. There was no reason for this match with mid-card guys, for opponents, to do a garbage match with all that furniture and all those bumps. It just made meaningless anything that they can do in the future for an angle or a grudge match with main event guys, and buried their world championship. What in the world? How are 2 guys in a ring supposed to follow all that fucking lunacy, all the furniture, and fighting all over the arena with 6 guys in the match and 5 guys that ran in? That's what the Booker of the Year. I laugh. And everybody else does too that knows anything about the wrestling business and doesn't want a job. The veterans smiling at Tony Khan's face and giving him the thumbs up on Twitter want a fucking job, because this was embarrassing, needless and unnecessary. It's like cutting your own dick off. Why would you just sit around one day and say, I'll just chop my cock off, or I'll just shoot myself in the foot, or I'll just expose myself to leprosy? Jesus Christ. Let Sting and Sammy and Darby, if you don't have an angle for them, just go out there and beat 3 guys in 7 minutes and look great doing it, and save this shit for when people will pay to see it with people they'll pay to see doing it. And then still don't do half of this shit, because that's irresponsible. What you think of this abortion?
I was already falling asleep. I mean, that's the point. The match was unnecessary. I agree. You have to have Sting and Darby and Sammy. You would think you would have to have them on a show just because they were the guys that ran out to save Punk for a reason last week. They are really the top babyface stars. If you think about it, who's a true babyface there? Darby, Sammy right now. So it makes sense. You want them on the show. But it was just this, and it was already so late into the fucking show. And no one cares about Matt Hardy and all this. They'll care again when his brother's there, just like the rest of his career. We know how this works. I hated this, but I was falling asleep. I couldn't believe I was done after Regal. I was like, okay, I've seen a lot of the show. The matches I want to see have already aired. The match that surprised me, the opening match, already aired. Nothing's going to top that. And nothing did top that, and it was a struggle to make it through the rest of this show. This match shouldn't have even been on the show.
And 3.5 hours into this, and see, that's from the start of the pay-per-view. They apparently aired a countdown show and had 2 or 3 matches beforehand.
I watched that too.
Oh my God. Why?
Well, I had ordered the event on Bleacher Report Live or BR Live, whatever, and once I ordered it, you could press play, and I ordered it in advance of the show, and then it pressed play, and all of a sudden Hook was wrestling. So I said, oh, I'll watch this.
Well, see, I ordered the legitimate pay-per-view. The Spectrum assholes, I've snuck under them. They're letting me order the pay-per-views now so that I could have a fast-forward function with on-screen capability so that I could see what I was skipping past because I knew this was going to be a marathon. And it started right at 8 o'clock Eastern with the Jericho Kingston match. So the people in the building and people that were watching on other services, it was 4.5 going on 5 hours into this show, plus the time that they got there at the building. What the fuck? So anyway, the Booker of the Year then closes the event with a World Championship match between Adam Cole, who nobody believes deserves a world title match because he just got beat by the fucking mascot, and Adam Page, who nobody believes is the world champion because he didn't beat anybody until he won the thing.
And they announced Adam Cole is undefeated.
And they announced he was undefeated when we just saw him lose to the devastating hug perpetrated on him by Pockets. And their statistics are supposed to mean something. They said, well, that was an unsanctioned match. Yeah, well, then you should have pulled the sanction from my eyeballs because I saw it. And at this point, like I said, 3.5 to 4.5 hours in this show, they're starting this with two guys with no, and not that they needed any more stipulations, but a regular match with no furniture, no disqualification, no stipulation, no special rules after they have done literally everything that a human being can do to another human being in the previous 3 hours. This again is the kind of thing that both these guys would have gone to the Booker in the old days if this situation had presented itself and said, are you fucking kidding? Are you out of your fucking mind? You want us to go out there now after you've done all this shit? But that happened sometimes, but rarely, because they didn't normally send people out to do something after they had just disemboweled the fucking nuns from the goddamn local convent in front of everybody. So why did Adam Cole come out with a military gimmick on? Some kind of military shoulder pads and flak jacket thing? Is he in the army now?
He looked ridiculous. Let's be honest, he looked ridiculous.
But I don't understand the military.
I thought it was a video game thing. I don't even know. I thought it was a video game thing. I don't know.
Well, it looked like camouflage shoulder pads and flak jacket with things on his arms. Now he's dressing up like he's in a video game?
Maybe he's going into the Old Navy.
Or the Salvation Army.
Or the Salvation Army.
Or the Merchant Marines.
God damn it. I was about to go there.
You're about to... Or the Right Guard. But anyway, he's in the army now. He's not behind the plow. You'll never get rich. So Cowboy Cole follows Sergeant Cole, or Cowboy Page rather follows Sergeant Cole. The cowboy came out in a vest with fluorescent pink tassels on it. Just like all the famous Funk Brothers and all the Cowboy Bob Ellis, he used to wear a lot of fluorescent pink. The crowd would not have been into this as much as they were early if they hadn't figured out that both guys' names were Adam and they could have fun with the chance to excite themselves. And, both these guys' shit looks good. They work hard. I saw a hint of a tan on Adam Cole. Maybe he's taking himself seriously again. And their execution of everything looks good and crisp. But again, it's just, maybe they're bad influences on each other here because the psychology that I thought Adam Cole might be able to bring to people like Adam Page. It looks like he's lost it rather than Page has gotten it. You know, again, they couldn't do anything that people already hadn't seen, but you know, they're just doing everything. It's like a modern style match where nothing means anything 5 seconds after it's been done. You'll hit somebody with one or two high impact moves and then hit the ropes and charge at them, and they'll just come back like nothing's wrong and just fucking hit you with something. At one point, Page powerbombed Adam Cole on the apron, and it made a sickening noise, and it looked like it hurt. I'm sure it did, and Cole sells it, and Page immediately goes up to the top and does that goofy moonsault backwards off the top that he does in every match, and he missed him. He missed him. And he had just powerbombed the fucking guy on the apron of the ring. It looked good. Cole was selling. Be like George Costanza, leave on the high note, but no, then he climbs up and does a moonsault, and they show a replay of it where not only do you see that he missed it, but that Adam Cole tried to break his fall on the way down so he wouldn't get hurt. And again, if this had been a TV match, it'd have been rocking. If it had been a main event of a 2.5-hour show without Punk and MJF on it, great. But almost 3 hours and 45 minutes in, plus an hour pre-show, after all the other shit, everybody was tired. And everything they hit each other with looked great, but nobody sold it or barely bumped for it. They just go back and forth. They have to do the top rope shit where they both come off the top rope, so they have to take forever to help each other up there so that they can execute a backflip power slam that it's obvious that both guys cooperated to do. So they've risked their health and safety, and it's meaningless because it looked fake. If you can't do something without the other guy's obvious cooperation, just don't do it. Because then you're risking your health for... It doesn't matter if the move looked cool. That's not the point of wrestling. The point of wrestling is to make it look like a contest. If you can't do it without obvious cooperation, don't fucking do it. Cool looking moves. Then here comes O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, and I'm like, thank fucking God. Let's get done with this. And Cole hit the Panama Sunrise on the floor on Adam Page, rolled him in the ring, got a 2 count. And then Cole kicked him in the balls and hit the Panama Sunrise and his knee and got a 2 count. And then Adam Cole hit him with a super kick while he was on his knees, and that looked great. Looked like he hit him right in the face. So he went for a second one and went straight over the top of his head, but slapped his leg anyway. So he missed him, but it didn't sound like it. But then after he has done all of these things, he goes for his knee, and Page just pops up with a clothesline, and now he's fine. There's nothing wrong. He jumps out. He does a buckshot lariat flip, but Cole super kicks him on the buckshot. And again the second time, and again the third time. 3 super kicks. Page is face down. Cole doesn't cover him. Doesn't try to win. Because O'Reilly and Fish are getting a table. And they set it up at ringside. And even though Adam Page has just had all this shit done to him, he pops up and gives Adam Cole the dead eye off the apron, head first, through the table to the concrete floor. But that's not the finish, because here comes the Dork Order. Fuck me. And they get in a big fight at ringside with Fish and O'Reilly, and they all, you know what they did, Brian? They fought off. They just fought off. You know, this would have been a Twilight Zone episode if I'd have hit the power on my TV to try to turn it off, and it wouldn't work. No matter what I do, every channel this is on, it won't turn off. It won't stop. And then remember, Adam Cole has been dead-eyed off the apron through a table to the floor. Now Page hits the buckshot lariat, and Adam Cole gets the rope. He got dead-eyed through a fucking table 30 seconds ago. He just took the fucking world champion's finish. He gets to the rope break. Adam Page ties Adam Cole to the top rope with his belt and super kicks him 3 times. And as soon as he does that, Cole stands right back up and super kicks Adam Page. And then Adam Page finally hits the knee that Cole does with the knee pad lowered, and then hits another buckshot, the same as he's hit 5 times already. 1, 2, 3. 3 hours and 55 minutes to get to that point. Their world championship match degenerated into an indie super kick festival because, as we've said, it appears that instead of Adam Cole taking his experience and high level of training he got in NXT over there, he's left all that and joined the trampoline cowboy gang, and they're just going to do this shit until they're finished doing it. And this match went over a half an hour. I mean, it looks like a goddamn... It's a pie chart or a graph of a witch's hat. It starts at the very bottom, it goes straight up to the top in the middle, and then comes straight back to the bottom at the end. That was the Venn diagram or whatever of this show. If they could have left off 2 hours in, wow, a keeper. But then came the next 2 hours. Did I miss anything on that world title match?
I don't think so. I really didn't like it. I was falling asleep. It just didn't feel like a world title match. Adam Cole, since the time I've been watching Adam Cole, I've never been less interested in Adam Cole than I am right now. And Adam Page, I don't know, he won the title, and now all the air just feels like it's been taken out of his sails, and it's only because of his promos and his outfits and the way he comes across. He doesn't come across like a world champion.
Booking.
Yeah.
Well, no, it also the 2 years of booking that did everything but get him ready to be the world champion.
Well, Jim, I want to tell you about the buy-in show, but before we get there, perhaps you're a wrestling podcaster who does a lot of work and has a lot of long hours, and you're forced to stay up late to watch a really crappy main event that's supposed to be for a world title match. You hear that the guy who owns that company's a billionaire, and his dad's a billionaire too, and he's a partner. Maybe you think, hey, it's time to sue.
No, I would not think that. Those things don't logically go together. You're reaching, and you have failed to grab the gold donut pillow. You have failed to grab the brass ring, Brian Last, and what you've done is you've simply given me a nonsensical transition to advertise the availability and services of one of the finest barristers to ever cross the legal pathway. I'm talking about none other than West Virginia's greatest litigator, one of the finest personal injury attorneys in all the United States of America, this man.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to a podcast where one of the on-air personalities gives absolutely no thought or effort into his commercial transition and the other partner is left to take up the slack, then you need to call the law offices of Stephen P. New at 888-692-8084 or just go online at newlawoffice.com, because there you will find a man who will fight for your rights and principles. To the very last man. He will fight to the last man. He will fight to the last member of your family is dead. That's how long Stephen P. New will fight before he gives up the fight. Don't you agree with that, Brian? You're probably mad at me right now for knocking your transition.
No, it's all right.
Stephen P. New is a man who will fight for your rights. And hey, if some of your family ends up living and he doesn't have to fight to the last man, even better. But nevertheless, Stephen P. New is the man who will fight for your rights. As we've mentioned, so many of the lawsuits have already been filed, the class action against the big pharmaceutical companies for the opioid-addicted babies that were born with the opioid withdrawal syndrome and etc. because of their misrepresentations. But he's done a lot for all the Cult of Cornette members, as we've mentioned, the various poisoned groundwater and the cases that he's taken, and the old lady that State Farm didn't want to give her money. He helped her out, and he can do the same thing for you folks. And he's also a title sponsor for the big event coming up in Chillicothe this coming Saturday night, March the 12th, from Big Time Wrestling and Bobby Fulton, where Stephen P. New and New Law Office is the official sponsor there. He loves to bring you your wrestling, and he loves to bring you your justice. And one of these days, we've got to get some way or another where we can put those two things together, wrestling and justice, because usually there ain't no justice in wrestling. Anyway, Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. When you go to court with Stephen, all you're going to hear is this.
Well, the fun continues, although we have been going for a while, so a few questions, at least a few questions here before we wrap things up, Jim. Several people have sent in several different things. Have you been following the controversy with Tony Khan and Chavo Guerrero?
I saw this on the a transcription of an interview with Chavo, where basically, remember they brought him in sometime last year, and he was with Andre, and he was kind of a baby face with a heel, and then he kind of became a heel, and then he disappeared. Apparently, he's the coordinator for the wrestling scenes on Young Rock, and they filmed that in, is it Australia or New Zealand? Somewhere down under. And so he's been there, all this time, and apparently he told Tony, well, I have this opportunity, to do this again this season. Oh, go, your job will be here when you get back. Well, they kept him a while longer than he was supposed to, and then he got back and called Tony Khan, and Tony hadn't called him back. And I guess he called him again, and Tony hadn't called him back. He's like, dude, answer your phone. I mean, I'm sure Tony has plenty of free time, even though he's booking Rampage and booking Dynamite and booking the pay-per-views and booking quarterly specials. Now he's booking Ring of Honor, and he's also got jobs with the failing football team and the other things they got going on. But if I was Chavo, I think I'd kind of get the message, which I'm pretty sure he has. And he was not happy. He's like, hey, it is what it is, but you told me this and now it's not. But again, they can't keep everybody. They can't pay everybody. And due to the way that they brought Chavo in, he was the furthest thing from indispensable. But he actually, a lot of people didn't know he was gone because you can't tell whether anybody else is gone with that program or not when they just disappear and you don't see them for months, unless you watch YouTube.
If you remember, Andrade debuted with Vicky Guerrero as his manager.
And then switched over to the other side of the family.
And then just all of a sudden, Chavo was his manager. Yeah. And then Chavo started hamming it up and becoming more of a comedy figure. And then he was just gone. And everyone forgot about him until this controversy. But I have the direct quotes here. This was after someone tweeted to him that he was removed from the roster page on AEW's website.
Oh, that's right. That's how he found out about it. He was taken off the roster page. So guys in wrestling, check your company's roster page every day just to make sure.
To which he replied, news to me. Naturally, a wrestling news source reached out to him right away. Wrestling Inc. got in touch, and he told them that when he, like you said, he told AEW last year that he had the opportunity to work on Young Rock. Chavo said, so when I talked to Tony about it, I said, hey, they just called me. I'm going back to Young Rock. What are your thoughts on that? He said, "Oh, I think it's a great opportunity, man. I mean, we are on a roll with you and Andrade, but that's a great opportunity." You see, this is now the big swole thing in this. He's just telling everyone what they want to hear. "Oh, you're a great worker. Oh, most definitely." Well, let me go back to this. "We're on a roll with you and Andrade, but it's a great opportunity. I think you should go and do that. Then you will have a job when you come back." And then he said that as Young Rock was coming to a close, oh no, excuse me, he stayed longer on Young Rock than he anticipated, but Tony ignored his text and phone calls. Chavo said, coming back in early February, started giving Tony some texts. No answer, no reply. Called him, left a voice message. No reply whatsoever. I'm like, okay. Then all of a sudden I see I am not part of the page anymore, of the AEW roster. So it kind of pisses me off, to be honest. He acknowledged that he's not under contract with AEW because he only signed a 3-month deal last year. I apparently have a Tony Khan response here, but any thoughts?
Well, my thought is it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for Tony to get out of the deal. Yeah, go on, Chavo. Go on. It's a great opportunity. What's Tony saying?
I'm trying to see where this quote is from. I guess this is from the post-Revolution media scrum, where there's always lots of news coming out of that. Here's a quote from Tony.
You think those guys, after a fucking 4 or 5 hour show, and some of them are bleeding and all of them are banged up and hurt, they really enjoy staying an hour or two late to do those media interviews?
Well, some do. You know what they say? The only thing better than the pop of the audience is the attention of the wrestling news press. But let me go with this quote here from Tony Khan. I'm going to call Chavo. To be honest, I was a little surprised because I only missed one message from him, and then he went to the media after I missed one message.
Wait a minute. He missed it. How many messages did he know? How did he know he missed a message? You see what I'm saying there?
Well, he knows he missed it. He knows he owes him a call back.
He could have said, well, I must have missed his messages, but now, well, I missed a message. He knows exactly how many messages he missed. Go ahead.
He knows he missed them. You know, the other thing too is not to take sides here, but to Chavo, every opportunity he has, like Young Rock, like AEW, it's an opportunity for him. I mean, it is his job. It is his life. For Tony, it's another, not to take away from his relationship with Chavo, it's another phone call, another text message, another email. In the day, it's very easy to be in the middle of something, not get back to someone right away, and just lose track of things and not get back to them for longer than you thought you would have.
I do that all the time, sometimes by design, but it's not people that are depending on me for money. Or think they're supposed to be depending on me for money.
That's why I can see Chavo's side in this, but back to Tony's quote here from the scrum. I don't want to say what Chavo got paid for being the stunt coordinator for Young Rock, but he got paid a huge amount of money, and he asked if he could take the time off and leave. I said, he was not under contract. He was on a weekly deal. So I said, I would love to have you back, and I do like you a lot, and you did... Hold on, I gotta go back. Oh, he's always reassuring everyone. So I said, I would love to have you back, and I do like you a lot, and you did a great thing, but now we're going to have to make our plans going forward without him here. We made plans going forward without him here, and we went on, and we've done a lot of great stuff, and I really like him. He did great stuff for us. I definitely owe him a phone call, and I was a little surprised to hear that.
Because he likes him.
Do you see the comparisons with this and the Big Swole situation, just in terms of... By the way, there's no intermediary. Everyone's going right to Vince.
Well, yeah, and you know what? And that used to be, back in the old days, 40 years ago, the way that it was. And that's how Vince built his company. But it's truth that, number one, you could go to Vince, and number two, Vince knew what the fuck to do once you went to him. But I know Tony obviously doesn't sleep a lot. He's probably not on the beam powder because he looks disheveled and frazzled quite a bit, but you can't do everything. And even people who have plenty of experience doing what Tony's trying to do can't do everything. So this is only he's eventually going to blow up, have a stroke, drop everything, and everything will fall to complete shambles, or start getting some people that can do this and let them do it.
You see, that's where it gets difficult. It's getting the people that could do this, but also making sure they're the right people. Because
yes,
I think AEW in a lot of ways, in some ways and in some respects, because I think there are some people, but it's been a missed opportunity for training wrestling executives. Because there's been no, not to take away from Tony's success, but there's been no executive leadership at the top to teach people right under them what to do and what not to do. And the one problem with wrestling is there are a lot of bozos who get opportunity after opportunity because there are no wrestling executives. There are no smart, thoughtful people who understand how to make money, how to get things done, how to deal with people in an honest way, and not be a typical wrestling bozo. And AEW doesn't have that. So I think Tony has way too much on his plate.
And you overlook the fact that the ones that he did pick to go into business with are the bozoist of the bozos.
Let's be honest, they show up. Cody was the one you would thought, he's the one who wants to be the executive. He was the one that wants to be more than, he was the one who wanted to be an EVP more than anyone else, let's be honest. And he's the first one to leave. And they spent so much time with Cody getting behind the scenes attention. And now he's gone. I think there are some people maybe in the future that could get that role in AEW, but Tony now, even if Tony was hitting nothing but home runs, everywhere, he's got his role with the soccer team. He's got his role with the football team. He's pretty hands-on from what we've seen. He's totally fucking hands-on with the wrestling stuff, and it's more than a full-time job. And it's more than a one-person job, especially if he's doing talent relations. He's not, I mean, no disrespect to Big Swole and Chavo. That's not the Young Bucks and Adam Page. That's not CM Punk and MJF. It's not that text or that phone call, and he's doing that too. It's a lot. He's going to burn out. Especially with Ring of Honor now, he needs a good staff, and he doesn't have it.
And boy, I'll tell you what, when he starts going down there trying to sand and paint the sets, then that's just going to add to the and then parking the cars. You know, he should hire some parking lot attendants.
QT can handle that, I think.
QT can handle parking the cars. Tony doesn't have to do all that personally, too.
Well, Jim, let's stay on the topic of the post-media, or not post-media, but the post-revolution media scrum, excuse me.
Or the post-media scrum revolution.
This is the postmodern wrestling world, but let's go, CM Punk, a lot of people have sent this in, had some things to say about Bret Hart. Did you see this?
Yes, I did, but read those comments.
I love Bret Hart. And by the way, I encourage anyone who hears me read this, go see the video. He's actually emotional and tearing up while saying this, so it really carries some weight. I love Bret Hart. Bret Hart's career got cut short, and it's a goddamn tragedy. And there's people who go over to Saudi Arabia and get paid millions of dollars, and it should have been Bret. And I'm just super grateful that I got a second chance. And I'd give it up in a heartbeat to give it to Bret. He's the greatest, and he was right. Bret Hart was right. Bret Hart is always right.
It's refreshing to hear somebody say something like that, because usually, you know, the guys are only out for themselves. Well, I could have done this or done that. But to be honest, his sentiment, Punk's sentiment, is exactly 100% correct. I'm not sure if maybe his timing is still a little bit off, because they only started going to Saudi Arabia, 3 years ago? And Bret would have still been past 60. But if he,
but you see Goldberg on there, I guess that's
I was about
the
to
thing
say, if Goldberg can get in the ring at his age, Bret, if he hadn't had the concussions, probably could have done the same thing. But
he got the concussion from Goldberg.
Yeah, he got the concussion from Goldberg. But it is true that Bret lost out on millions and millions of dollars through no fault of his own. Number one, because Vince made the deal and then pulled it, and then, let him go to get out of the contract to go to WCW, who was going to give him even more money, and then Goldberg kicks him in a fucking head. And, imagine just after the WWF went public, and when all these other opportunities came up, and the payoffs for pay-per-views started going from mid 5 figures or mid 6 figures to into 7 figures. Bret would have been a recipient of quite a bit of that, because he still, even though he was, how old was he in 1998? He would have early 40s. He would have been wrestling for probably another 10 years full time, or as full a time as he wanted to do it, and then appearances after that. So yeah, even if he may not have wanted to go to Saudi Arabia, who knows? But even if he had already been retired and done by the time Saudi Arabia came around, yes, he missed out on millions of dollars just because, that whole botch up on both companies' parts. Vince not being able to keep him, or not wanting to keep him, WCW not knowing what to do with him, and then Goldberg kicking him in the head.
There's more to it, though. And, you have those I'm a Cornette guy t-shirts, and, the I'm a Paul Heyman guy shirts are out there. I mean, everyone has those, and I'm not saying anyone should do that with this, but there really is I'm a Bret guy and I'm a Shawn guy camp.
Yeah.
And it's people like me who grew up in the 90s loving Bret Hart, couldn't stand Shawn once he became an annoying babyface. And then once everything got really bad behind the scenes, even that started spilling out on to the show, and you could tell. And he became really an unappealing wrestler. I couldn't stand him. Appreciated what he was doing, but I loved Bret's work. And when he says Bret is right, Bret was always right, Bret was the one who Shawn and his friends mocked for how serious he took things. And look at this feud that CM Punk just did.
Yeah.
And we know CM Punk's not doing anything he doesn't want to do. The feud was taken seriously. It was exactly the kind of wrestling we want to see. Bret Hart was doing the kind of shit we wish more guys would do today. And when you look at the guys who were the Bret Hart guys in the business, the clear-cut ones, the declared ones, and then you look at the Shawn Michaels camp, the guys who were influenced by the DX or nonstop super kicks or Shawn Michaels style, where even if you like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart was the same era, and they were equally good for what they did. It's just I prefer Bret Hart style to Shawn's, but that Shawn Michaels style went one way and the Bret Hart style went another way. And, the Shawn Michaels style has won out for a while now, and he had all the influence behind the scenes in WWE, but I think the people that appreciate Bret and what Bret did and what Bret brought to the table and mentally what Bret was trying to do, I think we're winning in the end.
Well, and I'll tell you, I've in the past said Bret took himself too seriously. He took the business seriously. That was the good thing. In some cases, at that point in time, he took himself so seriously that it was like when you're trying to deal with him in the office. But I never dreamed that we would lose that from everybody else's part, and nobody would then either take themselves or the business seriously anymore. But that's what the Shawn Michaels fans in those days, besides the girls, for the Heartbreak Kid, the Shawn Michaels fans were the fans of the casual wrestling fans that just wanted to see the dive and the flip and the like we've got today, that just want to see somebody go out there and do moves and shit. He was very ballet-like, right? And so for the casual fan and somebody just watched wrestling see that was the Michaels. Bret Hart, those fans were into the art of and the sport of pro wrestling. And Bret was more consistently serious and believable and the things that they wanted. And that led to more guys wanting to be wrestlers because they wanted to make,
He was the smartest in-ring storyteller.
Yeah.
Of the top flight WWF guys of that era by far.
And so it lasts longer. It doesn't wear out. It doesn't get dated, because it's emotions. And so Bret's style it's like, as we've talked about, you watch ECW TV from the 90s, and then you watch Smoky Mountain Wrestling from the same time, or the Territories from just a few years earlier, and that shit still stands up because we didn't tie our shit to any particular time period or anything that was hot or culturally significant, whatever, that's then going to go away. And now the ECW shows, they don't age that well because it was all about that particular 5-year period. And Paul was stealing so much from pop culture and not just doing wrestling. Wrestling, if it's good, it's not time dated. It doesn't go, there's no shelf life. You understand it regardless of what era it's from, and you can appreciate the performance. When you start trying to tie it to all what's hot or, current or the fad in today's culture, people watch it 15 years from now, they go, what the fuck is all this? So we saw enough crotch chops to last us for a fucking lifetime back then.
Even Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash's best match, Bret Hart. Go back and watch. He knew how to tell his story with anyone you put him in the ring with. And I'm glad to hear CM Punk say these things about Bret Hart, and a lot of us echo them. But Jim, a couple more questions before we wrap things up. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from a member of the Arcadian Vanguard family, Jake Hammer. With the crisis going on right now between Russia and Ukraine, is it possible we will see the return of Russian foreign heels? What do you think, Jim?
No. Because then somebody would fucking take up a petition saying, oh, you're treating the Russians terribly.
No, it would be about exploiting the situation, I think, more than that.
Well, I don't know. But, it's not like the Russian people have never been heels. They're people the same way as everybody else is. But the Russian government has always been heelish. So, I think if they were going to do it, they would have still done it before now. I think we've lost. That's another thing we've lost in wrestling, is the ability to have a good fucking foreign menace. And, that's just another thing that we can't do anymore to draw money and to get people interested in a babyface, because he is being put upon and fucked with by some evil foreign, fucking power that wants to take over and run things their way. It could be Mars. It could be somebody from Mars. It doesn't have to be racist or sexist or phobic of any kind. Just find somebody from somewhere else that wants to take over your shit and a good guy to fight them. But we can't do that anymore either, because somebody will get their feelings hurt.
Well, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jason in Baltimore. I recently rewatched the Roddy Piper documentary on A&E. When discussing the fact that Roddy always refused to lose to him, Hulk Hogan states that Piper could have made more money and been more successful if he had agreed to lose to him. I've always understood things to be the opposite, that if Piper had done the job to Hogan, he would have quickly been replaced with a new villain. What do you think?
Well, but see, the thing is, if people thought that Piper could have been more successful and made more money if he'd have just done business with Hogan and done the job for him, then that makes Hogan look like the good guy for all those times trying to fucking wrestle him and beat him. Why didn't Hogan say, you know what I should have done? I should have had the match with him and put him over. Then he'd have made a fortune. If he's trying to be all nice to Roddy's bank account, no. Roddy was smart enough to see that if he was the only guy that didn't lay down for the leg drop at some point, then as hot as he was and the way he could talk and the position he was in, they would always be talking about Hogan and Piper instead of Hogan. He was the one, they never answered that. And Austin knew the same thing. The question was never answered in the people's minds as to who was the legitimate better man. Because that in Hogan and Austin, that match didn't happen. And in case of Hogan and Piper, he never got the fucking convincing 1, 2, 3.
And the other interesting thing is that Vince couldn't make it happen in either case.
Yeah. And Hulk didn't need it, obviously. Didn't need a win over Piper to be a huge star. And Piper, I think, did a lot better in his career because he protected himself in that way. I don't see how he would have. He might have made a huge payoff in one night for a big pay-per-view showdown with Hogan and then drop the leg 1, 2, 3, but he wouldn't have made consistently more money for any period of time because he got beat by Hulk Hogan than he already made by being Roddy Piper. That's just crazy.
Hey, next week, can we do a review of one of my favorite matches ever? Because I don't even know if you've ever watched it.
What is it?
Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart, WrestleMania 8.
I believe I have, but we could do it again.
Because, I don't know, based on a lot of the things we're talking about today, I think it would be a cool match to watch and get your insight on, because it's one of my favorite matches ever. You know, at the time, whatever, it was like 3.5 stars in the Observer. But to me, it's just, even though it's not a long match, it's incredible.
It was 3.5 stars then. Now it would get 14. But yeah, write that down in your little black book there, Brian Last. It's your show.
The book is blue, but let's get one last question here before we wrap things up, Jim. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi. Darby Allen is filming content for his upcoming reality show, Darby's Day Off.
Oh, boy.
The show will include Darby doing death-defying stunts. What are your thoughts on the upcoming Darby Allen reality show?
Well, I haven't even... Where is it? Is it going to be on TNT or TBS or where? What?
I'm going to look into this real quick. I hadn't either. I'd love it if they replaced Rhodes to the top with the Darby Allen, Darby's Day Off. What a funny thing that would be. But let me take a look.
Oh, boy. But remember now, and we like Darby because he's got that unique charisma in the ring and the things he does. But you have to remember that this is a guy who had no money and was sleeping in his car. And instead of just breaking down and getting a goddamn job so that he could rent himself an apartment, he made up a fake sex story, found a willing female accomplice, and flew all the way to California to lie on a reality television program about it being attacked by hornets or some type of deadly insect when he was fucking this woman in the woods. So he's not the guy to, he won't take the short way, the easy way, the path of least resistance. He'll go around his elbow to get to his wrist. So could be interesting. I don't know.
No real news about there being a home, just that there's footage being filmed. Obviously, AEW has this relationship. Fightful Select said that Warner and AEW are working on potential other stuff, apparently, according to one of these other articles from another source. It's just all sourced and sourced and sourced.
Do you think it'll be in black and white or color?
That's a great question. I think that's a really good question.
They ought to do that. The whole show's in black and white. That's how Darby sees. He's like a Dalmatian. He can't see color. He only sees in black and white.
And with that, the drive-thru is closed. Oh, God damn it.
What the hell?
All right. I was playing it too hard and fast, I guess, and
yeah,
too much energy.
That's what she said.
That is certainly what she said. And what we will say is that we'll see you this weekend on the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Of course, the drive-thru returns next week. Also, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Get access to the archive of shows going back to the beginning in 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. For $5 a month, you get access to the archive. Patreon.com/Cornette. Subscribe to the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel today to get full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, and so much more, all with the exclusive and very, very popular Travis Heckel artwork. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll come right up. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com or available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget about Cornette's collectibles at JimCornette.com. What do you have to say for yourself over there?
What do I have to say for myself? Simply this, the feather bottoms. I'm cracking the whip and they're shipping this shit as swiftly as shit can be shipped. Order today at JimCornette.com. And the action figures, late update, are continuing to sell, so get them quick because we don't have that many left.
At JimCornette.com. Don't forget the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!